Okay. Right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Planning Committee of December the 2nd. My name is Councillor Amanda Burrow. I'm chair of this committee. I've just got a few things to read out for you, and then I'll get everyone to introduce themselves. So the meeting will be recorded and live streamed by HDC. We've just switched it on. Members and public speakers must use the desk microphones, otherwise the recording will not work. Only 2 microphones in addition to the chairman's can be on at the same time. Mobile phones. Members and the public should switch off their phones, please. Fire exits. The fire exits are there, and the meeting point is at the top end of Mill Hill Car Park. We're not expecting a test, so if you hear something, leave the room quite quickly, please. Leaving during the meeting, people may come and go normally during the meeting. So the council is aware that planning applications may be controversial and emotive for those affected by the decisions made by this committee. However, everyone present is reminded that the council will not tolerate abusive or aggressive behaviour towards staff or other visitors attending this meeting, and anyone behaving inappropriately will be required to leave the meeting and the building. Now, I just have a few introductions. Councillor Graves will start. Councillor Graves, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, Councillor Graves, member in Broughton Astley, thank you.
Councillor Gare, member for the East.
Councillor Sarfus, councillor for Lutterworth East.
Joshua Worrell, Broughton Astley South and Lane.
Sarah Hamilton, Democratic Officer.
Keith Thompson, Legal Services.
Aidan Eastwood, Development Manager.
Nicola Parry, Development Management Team Leader.
Mark Patterson, Strategic Growth Manager.
Christy Ingalls, Strategic Growth Officer.
Good evening, David Atkinson, Director of Planning.
Councillor Neil Bannister, I represent the Dunton Ward.
Peter Elliott, Thurmby and Houghton Ward.
Councillor Moder for Bilston and Tilton Ward.
Thank you, everyone. Now we'll get on with the agenda. Item number 1 is apologies for absence. I haven't had any apologies, although I noticed that Councillor Wellband isn't actually here yet. Number 2, declarations of members' interests. Councillor Bannister.
Thank you, Chairman. Between 2021 and 2024, I was a member of the Leicestershire and Rutland Fire Authority, who are the applicants for the first substantive planning application. I'm not currently a member, but it was so recent that I thought I'd better make mention of it.
Thank you. Councillor Moder.
Thank you, Chair. The final application 25/01245. I'm going to remove myself from the meeting, from the room, because that's a family member's application.
Okay, thank you. Any more? Yeah, Councillor Gare.
Item 10 on the agenda, the Langley Junction 20 on the M1, that falls within my ward. I'm also a member of Lutterworth Town Council, where this is being widely discussed, and I'm on that planning.
Okay, thank you. Is that it, everybody? Thank you very much. Now we'll do the minutes of the Planning Committee for the 14th of October to agree as a true and accurate record. And I have a proposer, Councillor James. Seconder, Councillor Elliott. All in favour of the minutes? Thank you. That's unanimous. Agreed as a true record. Item number 4 on the agenda is referral up to council by the Planning Committee to consider any referrals under Part 3, Section B1.4 of the Council's Constitution. There are none, so that means we can get on with the applications now. So we'll start with the first one, which is 24/01643/FUL Highways Depot, Galby Road, Bilston. The Leicestershire Fire and Rescue Service Training Facility, going to be presented by Nicola Parry. Thank you, Nicola.
Thank you. Good evening. So the site lies on the southeastern side of Gorby Road to the southwest of the village core of Bilston. As you can see on the aerial photograph before you, the site is currently vacant and it was last used as Leicestershire County Council's living water recycling facility, and previously it was then the County Council's highway depot for storing salt. The majority of the site comprises solid ground and contains several structures and storage bays that are now disused. You can see on some of the photographs from here what the site looks like. Situated to the southeast and northeast of the site is Bilston Woodland Pool, which is a local wildlife site and nature reserve. Bilston Brook runs along the southeastern boundary. Public Bridleway C55 is located directly adjacent to the southwest site boundary and heads off in a southerly direction towards Frisbee. There's also a public footpath C56, which is located adjacent to the southeastern boundary of Bilston Woodland Pool and joins up with public bridleway C55. And those members that joined us on the site visit yesterday, we walked public bridleway C55 and we also visited the site and the Bilston Woodland Pool Nature Reserve as well. To the northeast of Bilston Woodland Pool, a site is allocated for housing for approximately 5 dwellings, and to the northwest are Bilston allotments. To the east of Bilston Woodland Pool is an extant consent for a housing development that was allowed on appeal for up to 48 dwellings, and a recent application has been submitted to increase the number of those dwellings to 62. Topographically, the site slopes from northwest to southeast. So here's some photographs for you. So this is a view of the site from Ralston Road. You can see the site in the distance with all the trees of Woodland Pool. Then there's views of the site along Gorby Road. You'll see that I'll make particular reference within the report to the southwestern boundary. So you can see that in these photographs here of the site. This is the view along the public right-of-way. You can see one of the existing buildings from that public right-of-way. These are some photographs taken from Bilston Woodland Pool. Again, you can see some of the buildings when you walk the path within the Bilston Pool itself. So, as has been mentioned, the application seeks full planning permission to redevelop the site into a Leicestershire Fire and Rescue Training Facility. Obviously, you can see the existing site plan before you, and I've also put the proposed site plan so you can see them side by side in terms of the built facilities, in terms of the difference between the two. Access arrangements, obviously you'll see the access, the existing access on Gorby Road obviously will be retained, and a proposed new access 60 metres to the south is southwest is being proposed, which will be for the new fire station facility. So in terms of the components of this proposal, we have a main building, which is the Learning and Development building, which will be on two floors. We also have obviously the fire station I've just referred to, which will replace the existing fire station, which is currently on Ralston Road. And there'll also be an appliance workshop. There will be a drill training area. There will be a container village. There will be a cold smoke training tower. And a dirty training building, and then a mock motorway area as well. So in terms of the elevations, this is the elevations for the Learning and Development building and appliance workshop. As you can see, it will be single story towards the front, and then because of the drop in levels, it will then drop down to a two-story building to the rear. This is the elevations for the dirty training building. Again, some more areas for the fire engines to go and be serviced and maintained. This is the fire behaviour unit and the container village. The fire behaviour unit has a height of 18.8 metres in height, and it will be a cold smoke training facility. The container village will consist of containers on top of each other, again for fire training activities. So the proposed development would not satisfy local plan policy GD3, development in the countryside. However, the site is previously developed land, and local plan objective 3 seeks to encourage the appropriate and efficient reuse of previously developed land and buildings where such uses achieve the objectives of sustainable development. Bilston Neighbourhood Plan Policy BR8 supports the redevelopment of the site for a mixed-use development or a fire and rescue station with training facility, subject to the listed policy criteria, and therefore in principle terms the proposal is supported. Leicester Fire and Rescue Service have been looking for a new site to build a new training centre since their internal reports demonstrated that their facilities had reached the end of their functional use in 2013. The existing fire station in Bilston is also dated and would benefit from being updated to respond better to current demands currently put on the service. In response to this need, Leicestershire Fire and Rescue Service have also requested to replace the station on Ralston Road here as well. And they've also advised that obviously in order to provide the facilities that are required, there is going to be a lot of cut and fill that's going to be required on this site. And again, members who attended the site visit yesterday would notice that there's, like I said, an approximately 15-16 metre drop from Gorby Road down to the bottom. And these cross sections before you show the red line, which is the existing ground levels, and obviously you can then see the proposed ground levels that are being proposed there, and obviously you can see the fire station at the very top, and at the very rear of the site is where the fire behaviour unit is going to be, which is the one I was mentioning. It's going to be 18.8 metres high. And then the same site section, but from the alternative side, showing this is the view that you'll see from Bilston Woodland Pool. So again, red line showing the existing ground levels, and then you can see the proposed levels that are going to be built. So in terms of the tree removal retention plan that you can see before you, and as I previously mentioned and mentioned in the report, the majority of the southwestern vegetation, which is highlighted in this red line here, will be removed. The main reason for the removal of this vegetation, again, is because of the cut and fill. It will sever the roots of that vegetation, and therefore it will need to be removed. The applicants have submitted a proposed hard and soft landscaping plan. That does show some compensatory planting, but it will not be as established or as wide or as thick as currently available on site. The other concern that officers had whilst dealing with the application was to do with the noise impact of the facility. Originally, the Environmental Health Officer did raise concerns, particularly with some of the training facilities that were going to take place, for example, testing the fire sirens and doing some of the drill training exercises outside. So they did originally raise an objection to that. The applicant went away. They provided a revised noise addendum report, and you can see the difference between the noise dispersal with having the mitigation and without having the mitigation. So the mitigation will include things such as a 3 metre high acoustic barrier adjacent to the dirty training area. And they were also proposing to close the doors, the sectional doors, to where the appliance workshops will be. So when the work takes place, it will reduce the level of noise to an acceptable level. On this basis and with the mitigation, the Environmental Health Officer has removed their objection and are satisfied subject to that. And I suppose the only final thing to tell you is that obviously there is no other technical objections to the proposal in terms of highway safety, in terms of ecology, heritage, archaeology, and therefore subject to the conditions that have been recommended and agreeing to a planning obligation to ensure sustainable travel packs for the employers that are going to use the facility. The application is on balance recommended for approval. Shall I say approval? Approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicola. We've got one speaker on this application. Callum Faint, would you like to come to the desk, please? Thank you. You've got 3 minutes and you'll be given a 30-second warning when you get close to the end. So start when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Planning Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm Callum Faint. I'm the Chief Fire Officer of Leicestershire Fire and Rescue, and I'm here to express the critical importance of our proposed new training centre and fire station on the Bilston site. Every day, firefighters across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland respond to emergencies that demand not only personal courage, but precision, teamwork and highly specialised skills. From complex rescues, hazardous material incidents, large-scale fires, road traffic collisions, the challenges we face and the environment we operate in are changing and evolving daily, and our training needs to match that. Our current training facilities, have already been explained, are outdated, failing and no longer fit for purpose, and they do limit our ability to replicate real-life scenarios that our crews encounter. The new training centre will change that. It will provide the state-of-the-art environment where we can simulate high-risk incidents safely and effectively, ranging from high-rise fires, breathing apparatus incidents, road traffic collisions. It's not just about better training, it's about saving our community's lives and making sure our staff are as highly trained as possible. The development also includes the relocation of our existing fire station to the new site. This move will significantly improve our station facilities, inclusion, enhance our resilience, and ensure we're better positioned to serve our growing communities as we move forward. It's a strategic investment in public safety, future-proofing our service for decades to come. We've worked closely with the community, parish council and planning officers to ensure the design is as sensitive as possible for the local environment, it's sustainable and it delivers real community value from the public purse. This is not just a facility for the firefighters, it's a hub for protecting the safety of Bilston community and the wider communities of Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. In short, it's a once-in-a-generation opportunity to provide our firefighters with the tools and training they need to protect the people of Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland now and in the future. I respectfully urge you support this application so that we continue in the best possible way. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Elliott?
Yeah.
Can you put your microphone on? Thank you.
I was on the site visit yesterday and thought this to be a good redevelopment of the site. The only thing that concerns me is the removal of all that hedge on the southwestern boundary. If you put a fence there, it'll look very stark coming up Gorby Lane. Is there not any other way of keeping that hedge? It's an old hawthorn hedge that will take some knocking about, I'd have thought.
We would be open to work with anything we can do to mitigate the visual effect of it. Clearly, as the planning officer spoke of, the reason for the fence is to reduce the noise mitigation. And I think it's fair to say when we install the fence, the hedge will have to come out. We would be open to planting something to replace it. Clearly, that will take a few years to grow in.
Councillor Moder?
Going back to the hedge, I know that it was a bit of an issue with us, well, a few of us yesterday or on the site visit. It seems to be quite a wide hedge, and we were wondering, and I know you're saying that you're happy to work along this with us, whether half could actually stay, the half towards the field could stay, and the half towards the site could be taken out, so that something could actually be there. We're just concerned about the biodiversity aspect of it, and it's just a shame to take all of that hedgerow out completely. I know the bit at the bottom stays, it still remains, but it just felt like a long bit of hedge that's going to be removed. And as we say, you know, that visual impact coming up the fields with the public right of way and what have you is going to be quite visible.
I can try and help out if I can.
Yeah.
There is an updated planning condition on the supplementary late list. So if you look at the reworded condition 15, I have asked that, even though obviously notwithstanding the landscaping proposals that have been put forward, that we asked for additional details to come in with particular attention. I've said on point 4 of that, given the southwestern boundary adjacent to the public right of way and the northeastern boundary with Bilston allotments and Bilston Pool Nature Reserve. So they are going to have to go away, think about what's been said, both in my presentation and the report, and what members have to say, if it's approved, and come back in with a revised landscaping scheme which addresses that particular issue in more detail, because from an officer's perspective, the plan that's been put in, I don't think it's sufficient, hence why I've reworded the condition accordingly to address some of the
No,
concerns.
that's great. That's really helpful. Thanks, Nicola.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gare?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank Nicola for a very comprehensive visit yesterday. I've cancelled my gym membership. There is a question.
Is this a question?
There is a question.
Is this a question for the
Yes.
speaker? Carry on.
I would support this. I think it's vital, and I think this is a good site to choose. But like Councillor Moder and Councillor Elliott, I am slightly concerned that these permissions might be seen as carte blanche to go in, and I appreciate we've just received this information, but I do note that bat roosts will need to be removed, badger sets will need to be removed, and I think it should be approached with caution and opportunities sought to do the least damage at the time. Would you be open to that?
Absolutely. Whilst we are a fire and rescue service and we protect our communities, we regard all of our communities and environmental sensitivities as part of that duty. So I wouldn't take it as a carte blanche. We'd look to continue to engage with local councillors or the planning committee as necessary as we move forward. We want to be a responsible fire and rescue service that delivers not an emergency service, but works with our partners in the area throughout.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I've asked this a question.
Just wondered what the speed limit was coming out the access, how fast you're going to come. You're not using it as a fire station. You're using it as a training facility. Am I right?
There's two answers to this. So the vast majority of all the traffic would be under training scenarios. So we wouldn't be employing exemptions to the speed limit under the Road Traffic Act. However, there will be the on-call fire station there that will respond to emergencies. Currently, Bilston Fire Station responds to approximately between 100 and 200 calls a year. That would be the only times we would be looking to apply these speed limit exemptions under emergency conditions.
Councillor James, a question?
Yeah, a couple of questions or information. I noticed your buildings are going 18.5 metres. So are you seeking to replicate their high-rise training? One question, please.
Absolutely. Across the service area, we have 156 high-rise buildings, which is the legal definition is 18 metres plus. Clearly, Grenfell Tower incident has highlighted the critical importance of being able to train in those facilities. That's why we're looking for the taller building, the 18-metre one.
Thank you for that one. Just one more question, and that is, given the training programme, presumably you'll be using certain extinguishers, maybe foam extinguishers, maybe dry powder. How can we deal with the runoff? Are you satisfied that we can deal with any runoff of any chemicals that might be used during training, please?
Foam and dry powder extinguishers will not be used on the site. It will only be water. We have a couple of other facilities that have the drain interceptors to enable the foam to be intercepted and safely disposed of. So we would not be using either of those agents on site. It is clean firefighting water only.
Okay, thank you, Chair. That's okay then. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Nobody else? Thank you very much. Have you got anything to say, Nicola?
I just wanted to come back on one particular point that Councillor Gare raised regarding bats and badgers. Condition 3 within the Condition 3 within the main report does say that the commencement of the development and the way it's implemented has to be undertaken in strict accordance with the ecology reports that have been submitted. So they will have to ensure that protected species are adequately protected during the course of the implementation of the development.
Okay, right. I'll open it to the committee. Who wants to go first? Anyone? Councillor Bannister.
Thank you, Chair. I've already made mention of the fact that I did sit on the Leicestershire, Leicester and Rutland Fire Authority, where we would receive at regular intervals reports of fire officers attending serious fires, and it was quite clear that they showed great courage as well as great skill in tackling those incidents. And it is extremely important that the fire officers do have a first-class training facility in order to deliver to our community the courage and skills that I've just mentioned. Read through the report. I note that there will be some landscape harm, but as the planning officer concludes, the material benefit to the community is of significant positive weight, and for that reason I will be supporting the approval of the application, and I would like to move that we proceed to approve that recommendation. So that is my proposal, Chair.
Very much. Can we have a seconder for that?
Myself, and I know how important the training facility is. I had to train myself at an ordinary station, and there are limitations to that and the effect it has on a working station. So thank you. It's something I would support strongly.
Any more comments? Anyone else got anything to say? I think we're all very much in favour of this, so I'll just move to the vote. Have a So we've got a Councillor Moder, sorry.
Have you got a seconder? Sorry.
Yes, Councillor Scott.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we've got a proposer and a seconder to approve this application. We're going to get the Democratic Services Officer to go through it.
So I'll now ask each councillor in turn whether you are for or against the approval of the application or whether you abstain. So Councillor Bannister,
I'm for.
Councillor Burrell,
Or
Councillor Elliott,
For.
Councillor Gare,
For.
Councillor Graves,
For.
Councillor James,
For.
Councillor Moder,
For.
Councillor Sarfas,
For.
Councillor Scott,
For.
and Councillor Worrell.
For.
So that is unanimous for the application.
thank you very much. That application is approved unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Things to the next application, which is hosted 23/01810/OUT and adjacent to Spurs Road, Houghton. Outline application for the erection of up to 9 dwellings. The presenting officer for this one is Mark Paxton. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Chair. This is an application which will be, or the site itself will be remembered by members from the Planning Committee back in the early summer of this year, where we considered a larger scheme on this site. So the application before us this evening is for the erection of up to 90 dwellings, land adjacent Firs Road, Houghton on the Hill. Run through the slides quickly. You see the application site here to the north of the A47 on the eastern edge of Houghton on the Hill. The previous application, which was considered earlier in the year, was a larger version of this site, so it extended into this area here, and also this area here to the south of the A47. So in a bit more context, see the aerial photo of the site. So again, you see the A47 running east-west through the middle here. The main core of the village of Houghton down in this area here. In terms of the proposed layout, you'll see access point from the A47, single point of access located here. The main element of the residential development is in this section with the Suds water attenuation basin just to the north of the site. The application site is considered as being within the limits to development within the made Houghton neighbourhood plan. The emerging neighbourhood plan, which the examiner's report recently been published, effectively highlights this site as the allocation within the neighbourhood plan. That plan has yet to be go to referendum. The referendum is set for February for that. So the plan isn't yet made, but it does carry significant weight in the planning balance. Just look again, this is the proposed access. So you can see the single point of access into the site, served by right-hand turn lane, enhancements to the bus stop just here, with a footpath running along the frontage of the site, but within the site and not along the A47, and then a pedestrian crossing at this point here, and improvements to the link into Home Close Road at this point. There's a couple of photos just to go through. So this is the view from Ingersby Lane looking south up towards the application site. So the main part of the site is actually on the ridge line here. And then this is the view from the A47 looking north across the site. So the site is effectively this area here. Point of access is approximately in this location here. There are speakers on the application, Chair, and some additional information on the supplementary information list, including a few tweaks to a couple of paragraphs as well. So I'll hand back to you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mark. We've got 5 speakers on this application, so I'll ask the first one to come forward. Steve Rowe, please. Hello, Mr. Rowe. You've got 6 minutes because
you,
you're
Chair.
the only objector. So if you'd like to start whenever you're ready.
Thank you. With your permission, I've got some graphics that I'd like to hand out that support
No,
the.
sorry, I can't
Okay.
have anything handed out. So if you'd like to start, you've got 6 minutes and you'll be given a 30-second warning.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Steve Rowe, resident of Houghton on the Hill. I live on the east of the village at number 97 Uppingham Road, which is on the stretch of road close to the proposed access road. I would like to share with you the ground realities of why the application is not in the best interest of the village. There is nothing remotely appropriate about the application or in the wider interest of the community, and the application only serves to benefit the applicant and would devastate the village. In my opinion, it would negatively impact the community due to the traffic volume, layout, scheme design, and will put lives at risk. I would have liked to have illustrated that with the images today, which essentially are a number of media clips that show a number of serious accidents resulting in fatalities and a number of accidents that is contrary to the information that's being put forward through the PIC data as a part of this submission. So in terms of my first point, there's an ongoing appeal that's been referenced. The proposed site has been subject to, of several planning applications over the past few years. The most recent planning consideration relating to this site was turned down on the 10th of June by this very committee on the basis that it was not in the interest of the community, did not meet the tilted balance test and did not comply with certain standards. That decision has been appealed and is subject to a live ongoing public inquiry which has not reconvened until early March 2026. As you know, where a new planning application has been made for the same plot of land and where an appeal is currently ongoing, the planning authority has the discretion as to whether to consider that application. However, the authority should only do so where the application is materially different and does not attempt to circumvent the appeal process. Parker's applications have hedged its bets every way through numerous planning applications, and that is made on this part of land. The village has made it clear it does not welcome this unsympathetic approach to development. The application has also written to this committee to make it aware of an emerging neighbourhood plan, but that will not reach referendum until Feb 26. The base of the neighbourhood plan may include a range of options for meeting the housing supply needs, and the applicant's letter serves to suggest that the neighbourhood plan would fail this application due to the independent examiner's assessment. However, the issues that led to that suggestion have since been addressed, which could mean that the Redford's alternative site remains the preferred location in the neighbourhood plan. Therefore, no weight should be given this evening to the neighbourhood plan in reaching that decision. Prejudging what the neighbourhood plan may say would be premature. Therefore, it would not be appropriate from a process, governance or confidence in planning system if this application were to be granted today, knowing that critical information will be available early 2026. So moving on from governance and process concerns that I've raised, I would now like to turn why this scheme is not in the interest of the community. In terms of risk and well-being of the residents due to the traffic situation, I've opposed this application formally and shared my concerns. I've first-hand experience of the issues and have been personally impacted by the accidents. My wife has been involved in 2 serious accidents on that stretch of road, which were attended by the police and ambulance service. The Highways Authority states that there has been only 1 personal injury collision recorded over the past 5 years, between 1st of Jan 2020 and the 15th of April 2025. This is clearly not the case, and the information I would have provided would have shown there are at least 8 serious issues that I would have been able to refer you to. Therefore, this raises the question as to the robustness of the data and raises questions over how many other incidents have not been considered in the modelling. As you are aware, the assessment was based on a model, and models are just that. They do not reflect reality of what is actually happening on the A47 or indeed the main street. The highways assessment only considered 1 personal injury collision data point and suggested that the impacts would not be severe. If the highway model had taken account for all the actual incidents, at least 7 to my count, and number of fatalities, would it still reach the same conclusion? In terms of the A47, sadly there have been 2 separate incidents in 2023 that have taken 2 lives within days of each other, and another in August 2022. If you were to ask the families of those that have lost loved ones, I wonder what they would have to say about the safety of the A47 and the rating that's been assigned to that stretch of road. I'm concerned that the approach taken to the modelling the traffic risk is out of touch with the reality of what is happening. For example, number 99, my next door neighbour, had a planning application rejected on the basis it would be unsafe as the additional traffic generated from 8 dwellings accessing the A47, despite that entering the 40-mile-an-hour zone. The proposed access to Park's development to the south of the development does so in the 50-mile-an-hour zone, and I note that the application has considered data from the previous submissions in reaching its traffic assessment. Whilst highways deemed this to be appropriate, I think it needs to be looked at again. If safety is not being compromised, then what has changed? In terms of access to my house, when turning right out of my house, you have to wait to do so for 10 minutes. When turning right into my house, I'm constantly worried that the speed and traffic will hit me as I wait to turn. Sadly, this is what has happened to my wife, and she was involved in a 3-car pile-up. She was waiting on the carriageway for the oncoming traffic to clear before turning right into the home. My wife's car was hit by a delivery van who was waiting behind her. The lady in the delivery van had to be taken to hospital and suffered serious injuries. This data has not been included in the assessment data used for the traffic assessment. My wife suffered whiplash and to this day is very anxious from driving.
30 seconds left.
Thank you. So I'd like to conclude then, from a governance and process perspective, the committee should not reach a decision at this point, nor should it place any weight on the neighbourhood plan, which is due for referendum till early next year. You have the discretion not to consider it, and I urge you to do that. Finally, I'd like to draw your attention to the issues that have been raised in the various media reports that have shown there are a number of serious fatalities and injuries. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. Has anyone got any questions? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Rowe. Adrian would like to say something about the process.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on something Mr. Roy was talking about, discretion on making decisions. I think it's probably preferred. There are provisions when an appeal has been decided, I think it is, and the local authority can deem not to deal with a similar application. That's not what we've got here tonight, so I don't think that discretion, if you like, is applicable to where we are tonight, just to give you that clarification. We effectively have an application decision to be taken. We don't have a discretion to decline to determine the application. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Adrian. The next two speakers that want to swap round, so it's Keith Fenwick next, please. Got 3 minutes, Mr. Fenwick. Start whenever you're ready, and you'll get a 30-second warning if necessary.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. Very different application from me, from when we were sat here in a different context from when we were here in June. I want to thank your officers for the presentation and for the comprehensive planning report, and also for their helpful summary of a number of papers or letters which I sent to the case officer after the committee report was published. So the matters in hand. The application before you now tonight is fully development plan compliant. That is now acknowledged in the supplemental paper, which confirms that the proposals meet your local plan policies H1, GD2 and GD4, as well as the Made Neighbourhood Plan Policy H1. In fact, the proposals are not just compliant with the Made Neighbourhood Plan, but they are now also compliant with the Emerging Neighbourhood Plan as the examiner has proposed to modify it, and as the Parish Council have now endorsed it and invited the Council to put it forward for referendum. This is significant, and just to reiterate that, the Parish Council have endorsed the positive allocation of this site now for potential immediate release as their preferred option for their Emerging Neighbourhood Plan. This will address both the housing needs of Houghton on the Hill. This proposal will address both the housing needs of Houghton on the Hill and assist the council in addressing its borough-wide shortfall in housing land supply, a worsening situation from the 3.5-year land supply when we were here in June, now down to 3.1. I'm sure I will not be the last applicant mentioning that to you from your busy agenda tonight, so I won't dwell on the matter. Suffice to say that the presumption in favour of sustainable development, as now clearly confirmed by officers, is fully engaged. The built development proposed lies wholly within the village's defined settlement boundary. It is within the made neighbourhood plan as a reserved site to come forward in the event that the council can't demonstrate a 5-year land supply. So contrary to the previous speaker, this is not a plan which is against the wishes of the parish. This is a plan which is consistent with the parish's made neighbourhood plan. And as the planning officer's report confirms, there are no technical or other policy constraints to the site's development, which would warrant refusal of planning permission. Indeed, in complying with your own local plan policy requirements as established in local plan
Excuse me, Mr.
GB2,
Fenwick, 30 seconds.
thank you, the application will demonstrably deliver a sustainable form of development. The officer summarises the harm from development as being less than substantial harm to the sheltered monument, benefits arising from both market and affordable housing, attract significant weight, and lesser but positive significance to temporary construction employment, environmental design, sustainability, B&G. Whilst the highway benefits are only attributed neutral weight by officers.
Excuse me, Mr. Fenwick, your time is ended.
I will stop there.
Mr. Fenwick, has anyone got any questions? Councillor Sarfas?
First respondent was talking about that there may be traffic problems within this development. Do you think that there could be any traffic developments that highways could improve to make it more safe?
So the first thing to note is that you do not have a objection from County Highways on this. My colleague who's going to speak after me will rehearse the benefits in terms of slowing traffic coming into the village. There are a number of elements of the highways scheme in terms of provision of access widening of traffic islands, vehicle activated traffic speed warning signs, toucan crossing, all of which will slow traffic coming into the east of the village. And far from increasing the danger that was referenced earlier, these proposals actually are the only proposals on offer that will slow traffic down coming into the east of the village. And, you know, without labouring the point, the scheme to the west of the village that's proposed deals with traffic calming and access at the west of the village. It doesn't deal with those specific concerns that have been raised for you this morning. So I was going to go on to say that I would attribute positive weight to the benefits to highway safety that will be delivered through the range of mitigation that's being proposed with the application.
Thank you. Councillor James?
Thank you, Chair. Just on the point of road safety, I'm trying to, that Houghton on the Hill is subject to a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit, I think, at the moment.
Yes.
And does that extend to cover this development?
Yes. So the 40-mile-an-hour limit is beyond. It starts further to
beyond the
village.
development.
Yes. So we're within the 40-mile-an-hour.
You're within the 40-mile-an-hour limit.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my point. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Is that it? Thank you, Mr. Fenwick.
Thank you.
Tom Collins is next. Mr. Collins, you know the drill. Got 3 minutes. Start whenever you're ready and you'll get a 30-second warning. Thank you.
Excuse me. Good evening, Chair, councillors. Thank you. Just like to repeat Mr. Fenwick's thanks to your officers for the diligent and robust work they've done in putting the report to you this evening. As we've discussed in relation to the previous scheme referenced earlier, Park Strategic Land has spent a long time working with the local community and neighbourhood plan working group of Parish Council to understand the issues specific to Houghton on the Hill, what they would like to see coming forward alongside any development that they might take, and what could be incorporated into planning applications to help achieve that. A large number of those elements were present in the larger scheme, which has been referenced earlier, but Park Strategic Land also heard from the parish and understood the message that there might be a preference for smaller developments to be identified instead, and that's what this application is a direct response to. That reflects the fact that the scheme is wholly within the settlement limits, and the principle of development on this site is established through both the made and the emerging neighbourhood plans. I understand the parish have agreed to proceed on the basis of the examiner's report for the neighbourhood plan. And there are a number of benefits that this scheme continues to deliver, not least market and affordable housing, 36 affordable homes for your community. There are also, as Mr. Fenwick identified, a number of highways improvements which this scheme will deliver along this stretch of the A47 adjacent to the site frontage. This includes a vehicle activated speed sign at the eastern extent of the site, which will tell people how fast they're going as they enter the 40-mile-an-hour limit. Existing uncontrolled crossing point will be upgraded to a toucan crossing for pedestrians and cyclists, so that will have traffic lights on it. There will be extended central hatching, a new crossing island further east. The existing traffic island will be widened to 2.5 metres, which will make it safe for people trying to cross. There's 2 new buses with shelters, plus the new access itself, all of which are new features along this stretch of highway, which will serve to slow down traffic as it comes into the village. And there will be some additional traffic generated by new development, of course there will, but the development traffic itself isn't going to be speeding through the village because it will be turning into or out of the site. It won't be contributing to the existing issue of speed, which we're well aware of. Park and Strategic Land have previously tried to...
Excuse me, Mr Collins, 30 seconds remaining.
Thank you. We previously sought to suggest introduction of average speed cameras through the whole of the village, but that's not something that County Highways wanted to support. And similarly, they weren't supportive of a proposal to extend the speed limit further to the east. There is no objection from County Highways to this scheme, and we would urge you to support your officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from anyone? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Our next speaker is Ian Hill from the Parish Council. You've got 3 minutes. Start whenever you're ready and you'll get a 30-second warning.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Ian Hill, Chair of Houghton Parish Council, speaking on behalf of the Parish Council. I've prepared a talk here which I propose to give. It will be a bit repetitive of things you've already heard, but I apologise for that. This application is one of 5 current planning applications which Parker's Strategic Land have for different areas of our parish. One for 230 dwellings and associated other developments is currently the subject of a planning appeal, as you all know, and is relevant as it covers and extends beyond the area of this application. Houghton PC is in the process of completing a revision of its neighbourhood plan. The plan is now passed examination and is scheduled for referendum on February the 26th. The referendum version of the plan provides allocations for 2 separate development sites, each of which could accommodate up to 90 dwellings. The housing requirements for the neighbourhood plan, as required by the emerging HCC local plan, is a minimum of 120 dwellings. Thus our NDP clearly allocates more than sufficient housing to meet the current requirement, and does it in a planned and measured way with a broad support of the community. This will be demonstrated at the coming referendum. One of these allocated sites from the NDP, the emerging NDP, corresponds generally to the area covered by this planning application, although the current application extends beyond the NDP allocation in placing the SUDS area outside the allocated site, possibly in an effort to maximise the number of dwellings. In this aspect, the application is not compliant with either the existing neighbourhood plan or the emerging NDP. Within the emerging NDP, which we expect to be formally made by the beginning of March, the site allocation for this area does specify details of the housing mix, design and layout within the development, which will apply to any reserve matters application. One aspect of this is the provision of a light control pedestrian crossing of the A47 to allow safe crossings of this busy road to the services and facilities of the main settlement. Since this is a consideration for access, then the PC expects this to be fully specified in conditions for any access-only permission for this site.
Excuse me, Mr Hill.
Construction of the crossing, thank you,
Excuse me, 30
to be
seconds.
completed and operational before any new dwellings could be occupied. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mr Hill? No? Thank you. Oh, Councillor Scott?
Were the parish council all in favour of your comments, or was there any split?
Sorry, could you
Was
repeat?
there any split in the vote on your parish council? Or was it a unanimous vote that you come forward and present against this?
In the parish council meeting that we held recently to decide whether to accept or refuse the examiner's report, there was the examiner's report was unanimously accepted.
I didn't mean the examiner's report, your comments, particular development, your comments regarding this particular development. You must put forward you did put forward a
Yes.
objection, and that thing I must have said.
When the proposal was originally applied, which was in 2023, then there was a largely different interface, a largely different situation in all sorts of aspects, particularly in terms of the amount of housing that was required from the neighbourhood plan, from the emerging neighbourhood plan, and also, of course, the situation of the 5-year housing supply.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Sarpas?
So had there been any reports, as you're the chairman of the town council, had there been reports of accidents around because of the traffic problems recently in the last 2 years?
I can't give you a detailed response to that. I haven't got a log of when these things happened, but there have been a number of accidents along that section on the entry into Houghton from the east. There is I think it's a genuine problem here of accidents being recorded or not. If there's a near miss or there's damage to cars, but no personal injuries, then things often, I think, don't get recorded anywhere. And so, unless there's a fatality, then it doesn't count, like in many ways, and that's not really a very good way of assessing the risk.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Councillor Hill. Our next speaker is Councillor Galton, wherever he is. Councillor Galton is the ward member and will have 5 minutes to speak. Whenever you're ready, Councillor Galton.
Thank you very much, Chair. The committee report sets out very clearly just how complicated and contentious the situation is in Houghton at the moment with planning and housing numbers. In June, the committee refused an application for 230 dwellings on an extended area of this site and also a separate site to the south of the A47. The local community turned out in force and said very clearly that they thought the scale of development was excessive and the proposal would have had a harmful impact. I agreed with the concerns expressed by local residents, and they were grateful for the decision you made. That application is currently, as we know, the subject of an appeal. In the meantime, as you've heard from the chair of the parish council at Houghton, the council has been pressing ahead with getting their emerging neighbourhood plan completed. This site was proposed as a reserve site, largely as I understand it, because the applicants didn't wish to engage with the neighbourhood plan group on the proposal at that time. And conscious of the need to include sites that could be delivered in cooperation with promoters, they proposed to allocate a different site to the west of the village, which is also in the draft Harborough District local plan. The draft local plan was submitted to the examiner around September, and his report was received a few weeks ago. The examiner has recommended switching the sites, so this site becomes the allocated site in the neighbourhood plan and the other site becomes the reserved site. After a lot of discussion and taking advice from our officers here, Parish Council have concluded that the priority, and I believe the community's priority, is getting their emerging neighbourhood plan to referendum and hopefully getting it made so that they can benefit from the protection it provides and have some control over future development in the village. That means accepting the examiner's report in full and allocating this site. I support the parish council in doing this and have worked with them to get to this point. Regarding the site itself, paragraph 64116 of the committee report before us tonight sets out in detail the key differences between this proposal and the larger proposal turned down a few months ago. Obviously, it's smaller in scale and doesn't extend the current edge of settlement boundary into the open countryside so far. This application does not include a care home, a convenience store, or attempt to resite or relocate the GP practice from Bilston. There will still be significant increase in traffic movements, but this will be less than would have been created by 230 houses. I'd just like to highlight a couple of comments from this paragraph of the report. This proposal and its impacts differ significantly from the recent refused site by virtue of it being less expansive and occupying a smaller site than the refused application, and subject to future reserve matters application has the potential to provide more mitigation. Furthermore, the current proposal is solely for housing and does not propose other taller and larger buildings such as a residential care home. I think that's quite important what that's saying in looking at the differences between last time and this time. So for these reasons, the impact of this proposal would, in my view, be substantially less harmful than the larger scheme, and approving this, as I explained earlier, can only advance the clear wishes of the community to try and control future speculative development by getting their neighbourhood plan over the line. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Has anyone got any questions for Councillor Gorton? Councillor Sarfas?
With your experience of dealing with this subject, planning, highways, do you see anywhere that highways could maybe do any more to make it safe? And the other question is the whole of the villages, are they supportive to this, or is there a split within the community of accepting this proposal?
Well, thank you for the question. There's no doubt that most people would not want to see a significant. Houghton's already taken significant increase in housing in recent years on sites, and that's common, isn't it, across the whole district? Everywhere's experiencing that. In terms of the traffic, highways, as has been said, doesn't have a formal objection, and therefore they are only prepared to accept the things that have been put forward that the applicants have explained they're willing to provide. We have in the past pressed them to extend the 40-mile-an-hour speed limit further east in an effort to try and slow traffic down approaching, and for some reason not known to me, they don't want to do that.
So Scott, can you put your microphone on?
Councillor Gordon, sorry, question. Sorry, question regarding the obligation of highways, S106 obligation that they've undertaken. It's a standard obligation that we keep getting from Leicestershire County Council for travel passes and travel packs, and I have experience of these not being taken up. Can you? Do we ever challenge this sort of
through you, Madam Chairman? Yes, it has been challenged, and sometimes they've even asked for travel packs where there isn't a bus service, or what there's a bus once a week, and you have to question whether that's a good way of dealing with things. That I'm afraid that is the policy until they change their obligations. It's difficult to challenge, I think. Maybe, we're doing some work, aren't we, on moving towards a SIL. Maybe that's something we could ask them during that process.
So the subsequent question is their obligations go back to 2017 and 2019, so they haven't reviewed them in recent years, obviously. And it's £91,000 going towards this. That could, to my mind, if we said that it needs extra splays and extra ghost islands, then that could have gone towards that.
Well, I think if the community through each other, they're going to have the choice. They'd rather have a better extend the speed limits, try and slow traffic down, and have bus travel passes. I agree with you entirely.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Moder?
Thanks, Chair. Going back to the highways, you say that you don't know why they haven't done what they should have, well, they can do. Do they not give a reason? I mean, we've gone through this quite a lot with applications previously, historically, and you've got quite a lot of knowledge when it comes to this. When you actually ask the question or when they come out to assess it, don't they then have to do the professional thing and write the report and state the reasons why they don't take on board these arguments or
it's very complicated. They apply what's called the 85 percentile speed. So it's not just looking at the highest speeds. They net off the top 15%. So that doesn't help. But if you remember, the issue around that was for the golf course, slowing the traffic down for the new access for the golf course. And basically they said it didn't meet the criteria. There wasn't a lot of background or detail in that. We're always happy to go back to them on that. They do change their minds, and perhaps whatever the outcome is tonight, that is something we could take up again.
Thank you. Yes, I think that whatever the outcome is after this evening, I would feel more comfortable if that was the case, if we were to go back to them, because just hearing about, and I travel that road every day myself, and that is a very complicated junction where the petrol station is. Everyone's turning everywhere, and I do feel for the resident there as well, because I can see it happening. I've seen it happening.
Thanks, especially Councillor.
Sorry, I'm just sort of saying that I would like to
say it later.
I would like to see that, but thank you, Councillor Galton. Sorry,
you.
Chair.
Okay, is that it? Thank you, Councillor Galton. That's all our speakers now, so I'll open it up to the committee for actual. All right, sorry. Mark Patterson's got a few words to say.
Thanks, Chair. Just to clarify a couple of points. So Mr. Bowe mentioned effectively the issue of prematurity in considering this application prior to the neighbourhood plan being made and going through referendum. Paragraph 6.7 in your reports deals with that issue, and effectively this isn't a case of prematurity, and you'll see reasons for that set out in the report. Going on to a comment by Mr. Hill, I could just ask for the PowerPoint to be on the screen, please. So this is the proposed access plan showing the provisions to be made, including provision. I can get the mouse to work. There we go. So you see here, this is the Toucan crossing, which was referred to by Mr. Collins. There is a requirement under condition 19 for this crossing to be implemented and made available for use prior to the first occupation of any dwelling on the site. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right. Is that it? Do you want to say anything, Adrian? I'll open it up to the committee then. Who wants to go first? Anyone? Councillor Salfast, you were first.
Yeah, my concern is about highways not reducing speed on this road, and that there could be accidents. I'm not trying to stop the planning, but I'd like to see highways look at it again. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor James, you want to have a word?
Pick up on, I've got another question, but I'll just pick up on that point. Many years ago, I know this road very well. Many years ago, when I had vehicles going up and down there, I ended up in a magistrate's court and a coroner's court with our employees involved. And I don't think the speed limits have changed since then, but the point is you can have all these speed limits and you can have all the conditions there, but if there are dangerous drivers, it means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. And that was the case of these two outcomes, one in the magistrate's court where there were life-changing incidents for somebody and a fatal on the other one. So I mean, it's just a point. I mean, the officers do what they can. The speed limits are there, and some people do stupid things. And then my other question was quite different, but I just want to really understand. We've got this, we have this application here, and then we've got the bigger one that's on for appeal. It's Adrian Mark. Yeah, okay. Now, what happens then if the developer with the larger site wins the appeal? Does this scheme fall? That's my question.
Let Mark answer
That
that.
would be entirely at the will of the applicant. Both schemes, if this scheme were to be granted approval tonight, and then the appeal scheme were to be allowed at appeal, both schemes would have planning permission, and they could implement which of the two side proposals they wish to. In terms of the access arrangements, they are the same for both developments. It's then when you get into the site, it differs. So on this site, as you can see, again, if I could have this slide on the screen, please. You can see that the entirety of the frontage of this site is set out for residential purposes. As part of the appeal scheme, the majority of the frontage of the site was set out for other purposes. So you had the care home to the east of the access point, and then to the west of the access was the retail facility and the land which was being reserved for the GP surgery. So in a sense, yes, both consents would exist. They would both be there to be implemented, but effectively you can only implement one or the other. But there's no option to implement both schemes. And at the end of the day, these are only outline applications. There would be a subsequent requirement for reserved matters to be submitted and considered after that.
Thank you, Mark. Are they both these sites same developer?
There is no developer on board at the moment. The applications are outlined. They're both being promoted by the same landholder, so part of strategic land, but there's no house builder publicly involved in it. There could be behind the scenes, there could be conversations that we've had with developers, but as far as the applications themselves are concerned, it is a promoter-led development, not a developer-led development.
Thank you, Mark.
Just to pick up on the point that was made earlier about highways and speed issues. Again, if we could have the slides on, please. You can see here the access arrangements which are being put in place. They do provide for a soft form of traffic calming in terms of the crossing points, the cross-hatching area, and also the central refuge in this location here. As Councillor James has said, speed limits can be put in place, but you can't. People always potentially break those speed limits. As Mr. Collins pointed out, this application site, people won't be speeding to go into or out of this site because of the nature of the junction. We can't control existing behaviour and driving behaviour through this application. We can only seek to mitigate the impact of this development, not existing behaviours.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Did you want to say something, Councillor Warrell?
Slightly similar. With the last application that's now appeal, if we lost that and we seem to be negligent and got sued for costs, and then if the same happened with this one, would this one counteract that, or the other one counteract this, or could we get sued for both applications if we refuse them?
So I think there's a live appeal, and perfectly satisfied. Council's pursuing a reasonable case on that. That's going ahead as we speak. It's, as has been fairly said, it's all a little bit intertwined and really highly complex, but on its merits, we're here to take a decision on this. We're having a good discussion. I really wouldn't be concerned, as long as we come to a robust decision one way or another. To me, that's what we're here to do, and that's what we'll be doing. So I wouldn't be concerned about anything beyond that. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, David.
Yeah, it's well known, Councillor Laurel, the position the council is in with its 5-year land supply, minimum of a 5-year land supply for housing. This scheme is before you tonight, recommended for approval. The officers have done a really first-class and detailed report. We've heard about highways, but as been said several times by speakers and others, there are no objections from the Highway Authority. We probably can't speculate around the matters you have referred to in terms of being unreasonable or things of that nature. That would come out in a future theatre if we were to take a particular kind of decision. But the application is recommended for approval, and in the context we sit, that's a strong recommendation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a bit more clarity as well in terms of costs awards on appeals. It's not simply a case of if we lose the appeal, we will get costs against us. We have to have been seen to be acting unreasonably in defending our case for the inspector to then award costs. And as Adrian said, the approach that we've taken so far, we feel that we're relatively safe in that aspect.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
Oh, sorry. The question relating to SUDS provision, I noticed in the diagram, it's rather like a finger going out for the, is there a topographical or hydrological reason for that?
Yeah, the application site effectively slopes down towards the north. So in terms of the natural flow of the water, that's where it would go.
Because it's outside of the actual built area, isn't it, as well, which is, I'm looking on lots of other developments, it tends to be within the curtilage.
So some it is, some it isn't. It really does depend on the topography of the site as to finding the best and most appropriate location for the attenuation.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Moder.
Oh yeah, I was just going to ask a question about the appeal that's ongoing. How long does that normally take? Is that sort of 12 months or 2 years or?
No, the appeal commenced on during the first week of November. It was originally set for 4 days, and during which time we would have hoped to conclude the appeal. At the moment, decisions are relatively quick. I've heard of them coming out within 2 to 3 weeks after inquiries. This particular one has been delayed because of the publication of the examiner's report for the neighbourhood plan. Effectively, a confidential version of that was released to ourselves as the local planning authority and the parish council on day 4 of the inquiry, which was the day that we were going to be looking at evidence around the neighbourhood plan. And so it was deemed unfair to proceed at that point, whereby we adjourned the hearing. We have now set a date to reconvene, which will be on the 3rd of March, I think it is. That was effectively the first date that all parties and the inspector were available for everybody to be at the inquiry.
Councillor Bannister. Then Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Chair, and I want to thank all the speakers. I've listened very carefully to all of them, read the report very carefully and listened to the planning officer's representations. I oppose the application that was before this committee in June. I thought the 230 homes are wholly disproportionate to the village of Houghton on the Hill. Note that the applicants have gone away. They say that they work with the community and have come up with this application. And I do note it is significantly different from the application that we had before us in June. Complies with the emerging development plan and emerging neighbourhood plan. And the parish council has accepted the commentary from the planning inspectorate about their emerging neighbourhood plan with regard to this particular site. I note paragraph 6.3.5 regarding the mitigation on the highways that hopefully will slow down the traffic on the A47. and I have great sympathy with the speaker, Mr. Rowe, particularly his wife, who's been caught up in 2 collisions. Perhaps these mitigations are some way towards helping rather than hindering the traffic on the A47 and the potential for more collisions on that stretch of the road. So having considered all those matters, considered the tilted balance and the deficit in the 5-year housing loan supply, I will propose that we move to a vote to approve the application.
Thank you, Councillor Bannister. Councillor Elliott is going to speak next, but have I got a seconder for the proposal? Councillor Scott, you want to second that proposal to approve? Okay, thank you. Councillor Elliott?
Seems to me much more realistic application and more in keeping with the size of the village. The PC seemed to be in favour of the application, so I'm happy to go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Councillor James?
To get a confirmation again, really, this site is part of our new local plan. Is that correct? Is it identified as part of our new local plan it's going through now?
No, this site isn't identified as a draft allocation in the local plan, but it is identified as a draft allocation in the neighbourhood plan.
Okay, thank you. Has anyone got anything to say, or shall we move to the vote? Okay, it's been proposed and seconded that we approve this application. Democratic Services will now do the vote.
So I'll now ask each councillor whether you are for or against the approval of the application or whether you abstain. Councillor Bannister?
For.
Councillor Burrell?
For.
Councillor Elliott?
For.
Councillor Gare?
For.
Councillor Graves?
For.
Councillor James?
For.
Councillor Moder? Councillor Southwest?
Abstain.
Councillor Scott?
For.
Councillor Worrell? So the outcome is that 9 councillors are for the approval and 1 councillor abstains, so the motion is carried.
Thank you very much. That application is approved. Thank you, everybody. Okay, people leaving the room. I now go. So,
We'll just for this.
yeah. Our next application is in Fleckney. The officers are just swapping over. Sorted yet? Oh, really? Right, our next application is in Fleckney, 25/00515/OUT, land off Garner Way, Fleckney. It's an outline planning application for the erection of 170 residential dwellings, and our presenting officer is Christy Ingalls. Welcome, Christy. Your first presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members and members of the public. So the planning application under consideration is an outline planning application for up to 170 dwellings with all matters reserved apart from access. 2 access points are proposed and I'll show those later. Includes public open space and associated infrastructure. So the application site is located towards the northwest of Fletney. It is adjacent to the existing built-up area of the village on two sides, with currently agricultural fields on two of the other sides. It comprises 7.5 hectares of arable farmland. The site itself is not allocated for development in the current local plan or the neighbourhood plan. The site is outside the limits to development in the neighbourhood plan. However, the site is a proposed allocation in the emerging local plan, so that's the Regulation 19 publication version. That particular allocation that's proposed in the emerging plan is for residential development of around 150 dwellings. The committee report itself sets out the relevant policies of the development plan and the weight attributed in the officer recommendation, together with the weight that is given to the emerging plan. So in terms of what's proposed, up to 170 dwellings, the proposal includes a policy compliant proportion of affordable housing, and as set out in the report, the development would deliver a suite of SIL compliant developer contributions to mitigate the impacts of development. So we have a very useful aerial image of the site. This is taken from the applicant's design and access statement, where you can see it's a very nicely contained site surrounded by existing hedgerows. There are trees within that hedgerows, but otherwise it is an area of arable land. The application documents are accompanied by a site master plan, and this is indicative. Other than the means of access to the site, the actual layout here is indicative. But what it does is it gives you an indication of how the site could be developed going forwards. And one of the key things that you can see there is how, with the two means of points of access to the site, the developer is proposing to link those with an internal link road. So I'm going to start off with looking at the vehicular access off Garner Way. The photograph in front of you at the top shows an existing what appears to be a private drive. But that driveway is within the control of the applicant, and what the applicant is proposing to do is alter that layout so that it becomes part of the highway and is the means of access to the site. The aerial image at the bottom of the slide gives you some context to that. One of the things you'll see is that there is a tree at the end of that private drive. That tree is within the application site, and that tree would be removed. Just some more images there. Particularly the image towards the bottom shows how residents' parking provision on plot off Garner Way is not adversely impacted by the development. They will still have their allocated parking there. This is the technical drawing of the vehicular access for you to see how it will be changing from that appearance of a private drive into the access point to the development, and how the developer is proposing the drop curbs and tactile paving units for pedestrians to be able to cross. The second point of access is off Long Grey, and this is a piece of land that is currently vacant between two dwellings. It perhaps long ago was the farm access. It doesn't appear to have been used for that purpose in a very, very, very long time. And again, we have got the aerial photograph there to show you how the access would come through between the two houses. These are the technical drawings of the access off Longray, again with tactile paving units for pedestrians to be able to cross, and with footpaths either side of the access road. In terms of the vegetation that is on site, the hedgerows are important, and they are recognised in the neighbourhood plan as being important to the community. And the developer, other than where they need to get those 2 points of access to the site, the hedgerows will be remaining, and the trees will largely be remaining within the site, other than, as I pointed out, at the access off Garner Way. There are also a few trees that are identified as needing to be removed, but the applicant will be proposing a comprehensive suite of landscaping on the site. This drawing again is indicative, but it gives you an indication of how the applicants propose to deliver open space within the site, and you can see the proportion there of open space in relation to built development. And I just wanted to show you some photographs here for those of you who weren't able to attend the site visit yesterday. So this is from the Garner Way access looking north across the site. This one is taken from Kilby Road, looking towards the site, and the site is identified here. So that would be the extent of the site. And you can already see in the background the existing built development here of Fletchley. And this one is from the public right of way. There is not a public right of way within the site itself, but adjacent to the site, there is a public right of way, and this is how the view from that. Again, this would be the extent of the site here, and you can already see how it forms the existing built edge of Fletchley here and going along here. Just to make members aware of the situation with flood risk and surface water in particular. So the site is in flood zone 1, so at the lowest risk of flooding, but there is an identified surface water areas of risk. And you can see those, they are in the darker blue here. There has been a lot of work and additional information submitted with this application in relation to that flood risk, with the lead local flood authority looking very carefully at that. The actual drainage scheme will be dealt with if this application was approved through conditions. But with the information the applicant has submitted, the lead local flood authority is satisfied that in principle, this site can have adequate drainage without causing issues for neighbouring properties. Another point just to mention to members is the location of a gas pipeline, not within the site, it is within the field to the north of the site. There has been again discussion with the sightline operator, National Gas Transmission, and there have been discussions as regard to ensuring that any future residents of this development, there would not be a health and safety risk for them, and a condition is proposed to satisfy the requirements of National Gas in that regard. And I just bring up the master plan again in front of you. The application is recommended for approval in light of the tilted balance, the weighting of the relevant planning policy and material considerations is set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got 3 speakers on this application. The first is Jessica Graham. You'd like to come forward? You've got 3 minutes and you'll be warned at 30 seconds. Start whenever you're ready, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
I'm Jessica Graham, a planning consultant at Savills, representing the applicant David Wilson Homes, who have been awarded 5-star status from the HBF for 16 consecutive years. National policy requires councils to approach planning application decisions in a positive and creative way. David Wilson Homes has a track record of working well with Harborough Council and delivering successful, high-quality schemes. This is clearly demonstrated by the scheme which has been delivered to the south of the application site, known locally as Fleckney Fields. From the outset, the council's planning team and applicant have sought to engage positively to overcome any technical concerns and deliver the scheme in front of you, where there are no statutory consultee objections and planning officers' support. The application site is a draft allocation within your emerging local plan, which is at an advanced Regulation 19 stage. It is acknowledged at this time that only limited weight should be applied to the emerging plan. However, significant weight should be applied to its evidence base, which represents the most up-to-date position of need and site assessments. The council's own evidence base has demonstrated that the application site is suitable for residential development and is a preferred location for growth within the plan period. The scheme will deliver much needed market housing, 40% affordable housing, footpath improvements between the site and Fleckney Primary School, significant public open space, including a neighbourhood equipped area for play, biodiversity improvements over and beyond the required 10% net gain, and substantial Section 106 contributions. Having engaged closely with Fleckney Parish Council, the applicant has been ensured by Harborough Council that contributions being made by them towards community and sports facilities will be directed to Fleckney rather than elsewhere in the district to ensure that existing and new residents reap the benefits of the new or improved infrastructure. There is a national drive to deliver a significant amount of housing over the government's first term in office. Harborough District cannot currently demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply with only 3.1 years identified. This means your adopted development plan is out of date and your emerging local plan is not expected to be adopted until late 2026 at the earliest. Your 5-year housing land supply position is unlikely to change until the new plan is adopted. We know that there are a number of speculative applications have already been submitted to the council, and this will continue until you are able to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply. We therefore implore members to approve planning applications like this one.
Excuse me, 30 seconds.
Which have planning officer and statutory consultee support above those schemes which are in less desirable locations, are not draft allocations, and do not offer the benefits that this scheme will. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for our speaker? No? All right, Councillor James.
I wonder if you can help me a bit. I noticed in the report, I think page 159, we talk about Fleckney, a large village, etc. And it's obviously a good range of shops and services. Now, I know Fleckney reasonably well, but maybe not in total. I mean, how many? I know we've got the co-op. I know we've got a pub there in the centre. There's not really anywhere to park around there other than the co-op car park. And I just wondered if, I mean, how many shops have we got in the centre? Have we?
Question relating to this application.
Do you know how many shops we've got in the centre? Do you know if we've got medical centre facilities there as well to support this new development?
I don't know the top of my head exactly how many shops there are, but I know as part of the emerging local plan president, and maybe one better for Christy than myself, but I know that there are assessments which have been done to all of your key settlements to obviously, and that's informed your settlement hierarchy, and Fleckney is one of the more sustainable settlements in the district. It's got a health centre in Fleckney, so that's there, and the site is within walking distance of Fleckney Primary School. So one of the, I suppose, proposed benefits of the scheme is we're proposing off-site highway works between the site and the primary school to basically put in drop curbs and make it easier for people to walk from the site to the primary school, trying to reduce people using their cars as much as possible.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Sarfas, did you have a question?
Yeah. Obviously, you know, Fleckney's very, what's the word? The streets are very, very thin and wide on some parts of Fleckney. And I'm looking at one of the accesses going into, is it Beck Lane? I don't have a problem with the second access there, but the first one, when you're talking about 170 dwellings, do you not see any problem with the access going through there, that amount of traffic going into that one exit near where the houses are?
And so, are you talking about Garner Way to the southern access? Is that the one you're on about? I mean, obviously, I'm not a highways expert. I'm a planner, but a lot of work went into ensuring that the proposed access points into the site. So there's 2 key vehicular access points. So the 170 won't necessarily be coming off Garner Way. There's also the access off Longray. So there'll be 2 options to go. Well, so they're both designed to adoptable standards. So they both have the required width in terms of the highways and pedestrian footpaths either side. So Leicestershire County Council were happy with the proposals, and from what we submitted, I mean, just from a highways perspective, they don't have any concerns with the access. They will be built to adoptable standards in terms of the width. So we don't have any concerns, nor does the Highways Authority.
Okay, thank you. Any Councillor Scott?
It's a question regarding moving on from the access, really. In terms of this size of development, usually requires 2 accesses, don't they, in planning points of view? From your general, the number of accesses are driven by the Highways Authority rather than the Planning Authority normally, and I don't believe, and again, I don't know if there's anybody from Leicestershire Highways who can correct me, but I don't believe they actually have a specific amount. I know I'm dealing with other sites elsewhere in Leicestershire where we've got a large number of dwellings and only have 1 access. So actually, I would say having the 2 points of access and being able to disperse traffic. Obviously, we've submitted a travel plan to show how we're trying to encourage people not to use their cars, but 2 access points is more than reasonable, I think, for 170 dwelling scheme. can I ask, from a planning point of view, do you apply any mitigation in terms of when you say you've got the 2 accesses, where one of the accesses has always been a cul-de-sac? What sort of weighting do you put to that you're changing that total street scene and the amount of traffic passing through the area from a cul-de-sac to an access road and stopping it from being a rat run through?
I don't necessarily think we put any weight to it. Obviously, from our perspective, we just have to demonstrate that whatever accesses we're proposing meet the required Highways Authority's standards, and making sure that the Highways Authority will help with that. The fact that we've got 2 access points, I think, probably helps with it not being made into a rat run, and the fact that we're going into 2 existing estates, I think, will also help, because people aren't going to be speeding out of the site. You know, there's going to be cars parked around the estate, slowing things down. So yeah, I think from our perspective, we've done everything we can to demonstrate that the proposed access points are safe, meet the Highways Authority standards, and the Highways Authority are happy and had no objections to either of the access points.
Basically, you leave it to the highways. You believe it's okay, and you leave it to them to decide.
We do a lot of work. Our highways consultant does a lot of work to demonstrate that the access. So we did have to do quite a bit of work to assess which part of the access along the southern boundary was the most appropriate in terms of meeting the Highways Authority's visibility displays. So you might, I don't know if everybody visited the site, but there are a few cul-de-sacs that run up to the southern part of the site boundary. So we looked at all 3 of those options, and they were discounted on different things. So the westernmost cul-de-sac was discounted on highways grounds from our consultant because we couldn't achieve the visibility displays with the existing properties. The central cul-de-sac we discounted on arboricultural grounds because there was a category B tree at the end of that cul-de-sac, and that category B tree is something that is mentioned in the made neighbourhood plan as something the neighbourhood plan want to protect. So that's why we went with we decided to go with the eastern option off Garner Way, because that, from both a tree perspective, yes, there's a loss of 1 tree, but it's a category C tree. And as Christy already mentioned, as part of any future reserve matters application, we'll be submitting detailed landscaping plans, and there'll be far more trees planted than lost on this scheme. So the loss of 1 category C tree was determined to the benefit of using that access was determined to outweigh any harm of losing the one Cat C trade.
It's a very, very quick supplementary question. If you had to actually cover a public right of way, would that have discounted the use of an access? You said you discounted for various reasons. If you had actually had to go over a public right of way to make the access, would that be one of your considerations?
It would have been one of the considerations. If there was an option which didn't go over a public right of way, we try and avoid that because you have to go through all your diversions and things. But yeah, but there isn't a public right of way.
Thanks. Christie's got something to say about the access as well.
Start off with the village itself and the facilities within the village. As Lesley mentioned, the village has a primary school. This site is within easy walking distance of that primary school. The village has a medical centre there. We have Mark has just done a quick list for me. So of course it's got the co-op, it's got 3 takeaways, a couple of pubs, it's got a few shops. It's got a pharmacy, there's a library there. You'll see that there is a developer contribution within that mitigation pack specifically towards Fletney Library. It's got hairdressers. The village has got a leisure centre, which I believe is either under construction or about to be under construction. So it is classed as a rural centre in terms of that Harbour District Council's assessment of its position within the hierarchy of settlements within the district. Moving on to the highways questions that were asked. So I perhaps phrased it slightly wrong in my presentation by calling Long Grey as the secondary access. I mean, it's the second point of access. Traffic modelling has been done to look at the accesses, and it's found that traffic is likely to be spread roughly equally across the 2 access points in the morning peak hour. In the evening peak hour, there'll be slightly more traffic using the Garner Way access, and that is probably to do with the primary school. The primary school is closer to the Long Grey access, which is perhaps why you're seeing more movements predicted there. And the wider distribution of traffic from the development site shown in the model is 40% of traffic routes going to and from the north of the site, 20% using routes to and from the west, 30% routes to and from the southeast, and 10% routes to and from the southwest. So you can see there's a distribution that the model is predicting there. The Highway Authority has been consulted on this application. They had asked for amendments to be made, particularly in relation to one of the accesses, and they are satisfied with what is proposed.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you. We'll return to the speaker list now after that. The next speaker is Steve Robson from the Parish Council. You've got 3 minutes, Mr. Robson, and you'll get a 30-second warning. Start whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, guys, for your time. I'm Vice Chair of Fletney Parish Council. My main concern is the flooding risk. Fletney, as you probably are aware, has suffered a vast amount of flooding in recent times. And I note with interest that there's been no consultation document from Severn Trent in any way, shape or form, both for solar fish water and for sewage. Going to the flood risk revision D, compiled by MEC, Appendix J on page 65 shows no evidence that the site can be drained, and no existing proposal for peak discharge rate, and no attenuation volume calculations at all on the site. You'll note that the surface water is directed to the southwest, and that actually it only accounts for 60% of the whole volume, whereas all the surface water is actually going to be directed to that southwest exit. This exits onto farmers' fields. You'll see in Appendix D the state of the ditches. You'll also notice where the water actually flows through those ditches over the fields and crosses Kilby Road. That doesn't cross underneath Kilby Road, it crosses over Kilby Road. It makes a puddle whenever we rain, and cars are having to drive through all that. Obviously, it can be dangerous in the winter and certainly at high volume rainfall. It says quite clearly in the flood, the aim of the flood risk methodology and objectives, that no increase of flood risk should be created elsewhere. And I venture to suggest that Kilby will be on the receiving end of surface water. Coming back to sewage, the sewage is planned to go through the village. Whenever it floods in the village, the sewage overflows in the village. And it, like I say, Severn Trent had just got no real thing on that at all. Going on to 106, two-bed house bungalows.
Excuse me, Mr. Robson, 30
Thank you.
seconds remaining.
Yeah. The alleged total assumed occupancy is 510, which I find quite stark for 170 houses, quite unrealistic. And I would just submit that to you. As for Long Grey, it is a cul-de-sac, and I'm afraid construction traffic going through there is just not appropriate, in my opinion. Thank you.
Very much. Any questions for our speaker? No? Thank you. Our next speaker is Councillor Austin, the ward member. Councillor Austin, you've got 5 minutes as ward member.
Thank you, Chair.
And
Good evening, everybody.
You'll be given a 30-second warning, so start whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Well, you just heard from the Deputy Chair of the Parish Council. Having said all that and everything else, I know the Parish Council have had discussions with Andrew Pearce from David Wilson Homes, and they are not averse to this development, under the stipulation that there is another development which will be coming to this committee, which will be a Barratt development, which is in the area directly to the northwest of this particular development. Now, as majority will probably know, David Wilson and Barratt are part of the same group, and as such they do speak together. And on that basis, the Parish Council asked that any link road which went between this particular development, the development of the Garner Way, which links up to the Kilby Road, and also with this future development from Barratt, could that also be linked through to the main Leicester Road? That would mean that both approaches into Fleckney from the north would actually be interlinked, and it would maintain to keep the traffic going towards Leicester and Market Harbour. It would keep that out of the centre of the village, where the traffic restrictions and the roads are not particularly good for a large influx of vehicles. So that was something which Andrew Pearce from David Wilson Home gave a verbal assurance to the Parish Council. However, it doesn't seem to have been shown on your drawings, which would be the proposed link-up road would run from lane 1 on the actual drawing, going northwards on the plan that you see there, to go and link through into the Leicester Road. So that is that's something which the Parish Council have said they would happily support, provided they could get that assurance. Without the future enhancement of that link road, then the increased traffic down the Kilby Road and onto Long Grey would be a severe detriment to the local community. I used to live on Coleman Road, which is the road which brings up, and Long Grey comes off Coleman Road. And unfortunately, the access point is right on the bend in the road on Coleman Road. There have been a number of incidents and traffic incidents at that point, people turning right. There is quite a, shall we say, further on the middle-aged community that live in that area, and as such, with driving conditions, they tend to drive slower, they're more cautious, and that can create issues in itself. So we would ask that you would consider the actual access point carefully, because Long Grey is not a great access, particularly if there is no other way of getting out of that development to go towards Leicester. It's a lot easier to come out down that way onto Coleman Road and then out onto the Leicester Road, which takes you back out going northwards towards Leicester. So that's the proposal is supported by the parish council, provided that those ideals can actually be met and looked at.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Any
much.
questions for our speaker? No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Adrian would like to say something. Thank you.
There's just a couple of clarifications perhaps, and what Christy will add if necessary. First off, I think Christy's presentation was pretty strong on the drainage. Understandably so, because it's such a significant issue in Fletney. Obviously, that's why Christy did that. It's covered on page 139 to 141 of the report, and as Christy put up the flood zones on there. And in it, as Christy explained, the consultation responses, the lead flood authority don't object. Ultimately, it's a matter of detailed design, as Christy said, that the principal don't object to that. I appreciate Councillor Austin's point about the highways. We've got the plan up here, he's talking about lane one. I'm afraid, like the previous, you'll have gathered here, there's another application to the north. In fact, there's a plan application from Steve only in the last couple of days to the south. So like many of the other villages around, we're dealing with a very complex set of scenarios. But the I think the point Councillor Austin's getting to is to improve access. But the difficulty we would have as officers recommending to the councillors, as you will be very familiar with, we've got to deal with what we've got before us. We can't kind of speculate and try to off-site. Councillor Austin's talking in good faith about land to the north. And that's a decision for later on. It would be basically unreasonable if approving this to impose a requirement on this particular applicant to provide for something to the north that may or may not happen. So it's not a reasonable condition to impose. So that's my understanding of that, but it's probably considered on for Chris. Is anything more you want to add to that?
Just to add that we have had discussions with the applicant for this current application and with the applicant for the land to the north of the site. I should say to members that the land to the north of the site is not in front of you today. The two applications are not linked. The land to the north has got many technical matters that the applicant is seeking to work through. So there's absolutely no certainties around that land to the north. Also, the applicant for this application you're considering today has demonstrated safe and suitable vehicular access to serve their development. But it was quite clear that both parties were amenable to that discussion around the link road. It's just that at this point in time, there is absolutely no certainty around that land to the north.
Thank you. It's open to the committee. Who wants to go first? Anyone? Councillor Elliott?
Yes, perhaps the officer could put me right on this, but following on from what Mr. Robson said, if the water is, well, it says that the water will eventually go down the land drainage network. Well, if it goes down the land drainage network and that where that exits into the river, and when that river's in flood and the exit pipe is below the water level, it's not going to work. It'll just back up the pipe. If you understand what I mean.
So I should be clear that I'm not a flood risk assessment. I don't have detailed knowledge, but I can tell you what our experts have said. So the Lead Local Flood Authority has advised that the proposals are acceptable, subject to the planning conditions that are in the report. Notwithstanding any surface water drainage details submitted under this application, this is an outline permission, and as such, no specific drainage is set at this stage. The LLFA will require, should this get permission, the under the later reserve matters and detailed design to fully comply with the national standards for SUDS and national policy and guidance. There will be surface water attenuation on site. Of that we can be certain, but the actual detail of it, we have the Lead Local Flood Authority saying that in principle this site can be adequately managed. The detail will come forward at a later date. And that's perfectly usual with an outline planning application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gare?
Yes, I did the site visit yesterday and I've no problems with the site as a housing site and adding it to the village. But one thing that struck me was how bland it was, completely flat, completely empty. The hedgerows were weak. There were not many trees there. And one of the things which is causing flooding now is the clearing of trees from the upper part of catchments. And just looking at the maps there, I wondered if something could go in to say that using these areas without reducing their usefulness for recreation, to plant as much in the way of trees to reduce the amount of water that is lying in the catchment waiting to go, and increase the infiltration capacity of the site when it does rain. And it's probably, let's face it, going to be raining harder. Other than that, I have no problem. But I think we should seize this opportunity to start that. It's a small brick, but it's a very big wall we're trying to build.
There will be lots of planting in this development, and biodiversity net gain and the mandatory requirement to have a minimum of 10%. That helps us have that certainty. And you can see from that indicative master plan that the developer has already got in mind that there will be strengthening of those boundaries, there will be strengthening with that landscaping. Condition is recommended as regards landscaping and dealing with the ecology improvements as well as mitigation.
Sorry, can I ask, who will monitor that? I mean, will there be mutual monitoring of what they do? Because I've seen trees vanish in droves from sites.
So if there's an approval, I'm sure if I look at the recommended conditions here, there'll be a condition to say maintain the landscaping, replace if things die or get removed, etc., etc. Ultimately, in fact, you will know the council does have in the last year really a proactive planning enforcement officer. Clearly, it's self-evident there's a lot of these potential sites coming forward, so there's a lot to do there. But there is a proactive planning enforcement officer. In fact, practically, what he would do on a site like this, or others get approval. He maintains a register and work program, so it's not really for the decision. That's just information. I don't know if you want to add to that, David. That's what the compliance officer does, Dave.
Yes, the council, in its wisdom, reinvested in the planning enforcement team and strengthened it significantly. So now it isn't simply looking at cases of breach and reacting. It's now proactively seeking to positively manage the delivery of planning conditions and the requirements of planning applications upfront, in advance and proactively. So that means the planning enforcement team now have a very strong two-prong approach. Yes, the traditional reactive breach approach, but there's also a strong proactive encouragement and delivery of requirement approach as well. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Moder.
Thank you, Chair. I was on the site visit and I was just sort of looking at these pictures, and we had gone to Longray, which looking at this picture is an opening into the site, which is pretty bland, and it doesn't sort of seem to have a lot of impact on both houses on both sides. But the Garner Way looking towards the application site concerns me a little bit, because the residents who've got their houses sort of facing that entrance is going to have to deal with quite a substantial amount of movement there. The typical expectation of cars for 170 houses, low estimate 1.5 cars per house is what, 255 cars. High at 2 cars per house is 340 cars. And I did a little bit of a calculation here. So the typical suburban housing generates 6 to 8 vehicle trips per dwelling per day. That's each trip one movement in or out. So the low estimate for 170 houses would be 1,020 vehicle movements per day. High estimate 1,300, just above 1,300 movements a day. And I'm just a bit concerned that those cars going in and out of Garner Way will have a huge impact on the houses already there. And that's just my comments with regards to the traffic and the car movements on that proposed site. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moder. I'll just go to Councillor Scott.
It's a question really relating to planning law, my understanding of it, in terms of conditions we set, in terms of conditions regarding drainage. They are later on in the reserve matters, or you can make them at this stage in the outline planning.
Just Councillor Graves, and then we'll answer all the questions at once.
Yeah, just with the vehicle numbers that have been brought up by Councillor Moder, even if they're a little bit off, it's still substantial. It is a sadness, obviously, or more than that, looking at that lovely little cul-de-sac. But I would imagine that all the legalities have been correctly done by the proposed developers. I want to pick up, please, on the point that Councillor Austin raised about, is it called Lane 01? I know that, you know, with modern technology in the next 10 or 20 years, we're likely to, and with law changes, we're likely to possibly get 20-mile-an-hour limits in heavy populated, especially sort of family type estates. And actually with more technology coming in vehicles, we could even see speed preventers coming in not too distant future. However, as Councillor Moder has raised, there's a very significant amount of traffic going just within a few feet of people's windows. And I just would like to offer some support for the principle of the nice to have. I don't think, based on what the officers have said, it doesn't look as if we can mandate it. I don't know if it's worth putting in a condition, but with traffic volumes going the way they are, we really are going to have to try to embrace the potential creation of a small road to Leicester Road to try to get some of these thousands of vehicle movements every week off of being in front of people's homes and onto a small link road up to Leicester Road, which I'm sure will have either zero or single number properties off of it, which just makes complete sense. But I appreciate that maybe we can't do it now. And I just had one final little question, which is, I appreciate Councillor Austin as a brand new councillor. Have we had any feedback from the longer serving councillor, Councillor Birch in Fleckney, please?
Yeah, Councillor Sarpas and then Councillor James.
My concern is the amount of cars going through one of the entrances, not the side one, the ones near where the houses are. On other developments of Lutterworth, where the same thing has happened, cars are still going too fast. Whether you say that, well, you know, for 170 dwellings, cars will go one or go to the other one, the exits. But from where the houses are on the first one, cars, you know, like in Lutterworth on new developments, cars are still going in to those roads too fast because they think it's because their life is busy and everything is fast. So there is a concern there on this development on that access.
Thank you. Councillor James.
Thank you, Chair. I do have sympathy with Councillor Austin with regard to the traffic flows through the whole village. I mean, the centre of the village it's a bit disjointed, the traffic flow, from my recollection of it. You've got one-way systems sort of very close to the middle. You've got blind bends. So I think there are real issues about traffic flowing through there, which perhaps the highways authority should have a look at. And then the other question, of course, is because flooding is in the forefront of the parish council's mind, and you know, when you read this report, you don't get much confidence from certainly not from Severn Trent in terms of the flood authorities. And I know it's an outline application, but surely there's some engineers who could say, well, if you're going to put another 170 houses here, there's going to be some impact on water flows and things like that, and sewage discharge. Surely we should be able to get there at this stage. So I've been uncomfortable about that. That's just my comments at the moment, Chair.
Okay, I'll let Christy answer some of those questions. Thank you, Christy.
I'm going to start off with Garner Way access element. So you're not going to have an arrangement that is any different to how the other properties are on Garner Way. So if we have a look here, this is the proposed access point here, and this is the existing road, and you can see how houses here that are existing, their existing relationship with that road. So the houses here, yes, they will feel the change. That needs to be acknowledged. But these properties were considered acceptable in terms of their relationship with the road. These will have virtually no different relationship. They will experience a change. These properties, as you can see, are set back behind their car parking area. In terms of the link to Leicester Road, I completely appreciate where members are coming from. As I said, we did raise it ourselves with the applicants, but the land needed to get that access to Leicester Road is outside of the control of this applicant. This application stands alone. It deals with its traffic measures, and so it is recommended for approval. If a condition was imposed around providing the link to Leicester Road, the developer could not provide it as it currently stands. The land is outside of their control, so it wouldn't meet the tests in terms of an appropriate planning condition, in my view, in that regard. Traffic speeds. I would say the internal road network that you see on the indicative plan, it is purely indicative at this point in time. All you would be approving is the principle of the development and the two means of access here and here. The actual road layout will be dealt with under the reserve matters at that point. And then moving on to drainage, Severn Trent Water were consulted. In my experience, they rarely respond to consultations. They're not a statutory consultee. We can try and get them to respond, but they are just, in my experience, not forthcoming in that regards. The developer will have a right under the Drainage Act to be able to connect to the foul and freshwater systems within the site, and building regulations will also look at that. Does that answer everything, or have I missed something?
Thank you.
Chair, to come back on
That's
about the drainage. In terms of what you were saying about you can make recommendations that that they adhere to the foul drainage and what was the other? You said some of the other drainage. I think. Can you not make any? But I'm familiar with a particular area, which is in my ward, and additional drains were put that took the water under the road and out into fields recently after severe flooding. Now, cannot that be looked at? The parish councillor was indicating earlier that that there was pooling of water where it was just running off the field. Surely that's a recommendation. That's a requirement to try and take that water away.
Just going back to something I mentioned earlier in relation to the Houghton application. We, as part of this application, we can only seek to mitigate its impacts. We can't use this application to rectify existing issues. Recommended conditions 18, 19 and 20 deal with the requirement for the developers to submit a detailed surface water drainage scheme, including infiltration testing and also maintenance of that. But it can only be a scheme to mitigate this development's impact, not to rectify existing.
Not outside this development. Okay,
Yeah.
thank
Thank you. Anyone else got anything to say? I mean, this site is in the emerging local plan, isn't it, Christy? So it's obviously been assessed for the local plan as an appropriate site. So, Councillor Moder?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Christy. I think I do respect and thank you for acknowledging that there is going to be a significant difference to those houses, those particular ones lower down. And I do feel there's going to be quite a substantial harm to those houses and to the residents who live there. And I understand that we are where we are with it, but I just like my comments to be voiced that the trips in and out are a real concern with regards to sort of just safety, really. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So, anybody got anything else to say? Can we? Does anyone want to make a recommendation? No? Well, in that case, I'll recommend approval from the chair. Can I have a seconder? Anyone going to second? Councillor Worrell, you happy to second? Okay. So we've got a proposer and a seconder to approve this application. Sarah, would you like to do the honours?
So I'll now ask each councillor whether you're for or against the approval of the recommendation or whether you abstain. Councillor Bannister?
For.
Councillor Burrow?
For.
Councillor Elliott?
For.
Councillor Gare?
For.
Councillor Graves?
For.
Councillor James?
Against.
Councillor Moder?
Against.
Councillor Sarfas?
Against.
Councillor Scott?
Against.
Councillor Worrell?
For.
So the motion is carried with 5 councillors voting for, 4 councillors voting against and 1 councillor abstaining.
Thank you very much. So that application is approved. Thank you.
Don't need to correct it. 6-4. Yeah, did someone abstain?
We're just checking that now.
Could I just apologise and just correct what I just said a few minutes ago? The outcome of the recorded vote is as follows, not as I previously stated. So the number of councillors voting for the application of approval was 6, and the number of councillors voting against the approval were 4. So the motion to approve the application is carried.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so that is approved. Right. Our next. Okay. Since one of the councillors has decided to go for a break, I wonder if anyone else would like to go, because we have been going on for quite a long time. So we'll have a 5-minute comfort break for people. 5 minutes. Just be quick. Right, we'll carry on with the agenda then. The next item is 25/00572/VAC. Thought it was a full.
Here's the full.
Land to the west of Leicester Road, Market Harborough. Change of use from outdoor sports pitches and ancillary development to use as a country park area, and the presenter is Nicola Parry.
Thank you. So yes, just to clarify, it is a full planning application. And as you'll see on the previous screen, the description is a change of use from outdoor sports pitches and ancillary development to use as it's an open space area. The original description that came in was for a country park, but the country park element has been removed, and the applicant asked to change the description to the one that's before you there. So just for clarity. Okay, I think most of people will know Wellington Place. This obviously is located to the northwest of Market Harborough. It's a former 2011 core strategy housing allocation site. The majority of the site is built out now. There's not a huge amount left in terms of development to go. The site we're looking at here is the one I'm circling here. So the outline application for the 450 original homes as part of the original SDA development indicated an indicative location for some sports pitches, which I've highlighted with the red dot that you can see before you. So you've got the approved parameters plan, and then obviously you've got the approved phasing plan. But obviously you need to note that obviously it was an indicative location for those sports pitches. And also when the housing allocation was first considered back in 2012, the open space typologies were calculated without the benefit of a play and pitch strategy. It should also be noted that to the north of where that red dot is, there are some sports pitches here, and they are there. So even if these sports pitches were to be removed from site, there is still sports pitches proposals to the north of that area. So the plan that's been put forward by the applicant, as I say, shows an informal kickabout area, a multi-use parkland, and then a mixture of a gravel path and a mown path which connects the open space into the recently constructed play area and the local centre, which has just recently been occupied by Sainsbury's. And there's also going to be a coffee shop opening relatively soon as well. The footpath, as you can see on the bottom, in the bottom picture, connects into the road known as Tedder Road. And you'll see on these photos here that the gravel path has already been installed, but obviously the rest of the proposal hasn't. It's just grassland that's just been just grown. But obviously if it gets approved, obviously the development obviously won't look like that. But I just wanted to show you that the gravel path obviously is in place. You'll see from the report that there was concerns raised by local residents, particularly regarding the mown path and the suitability of having a mown path. So one of the conditions says that notwithstanding the details on that plan, that the path serving this proposal should all be a gravel path and with a particular gradient to ensure it doesn't obviously pool surface water, etc. The application itself follows very detailed discussions with officers, the national governing bodies for football and Sports England, who have all agreed the site would not be suitable for sports pitches and the ancillary development, and that then an alternative use, as with the one that's been put forward to us now, would be more appropriate, and it would also allow more of the community to use it for recreational purposes. The applicant, recognising the need to continue to provide for outdoor sports provision, have proposed a financial contribution for the off-site sports provision, and officers have also agreed that the off-site contribution would be still compliant. If the off-site contribution is agreed by members, officers have considered possible projects that money could be spent within Market Harborough, and obviously that's also detailed within the report. Obviously, with the exception of the running track as a potential idea, the projects that officers have put forward fully comply with the play and pitch strategy, and for all those reasons, officers recommend the application for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicola. We've got one speaker on this application, Mr. Richard Henderson, if you'd like to come forward. You've got 3 minutes. You'll be given 30-second warning and you can start whenever you want.
Good evening. My name's Richard Henderson, Group Planning Manager for Davidson's Developments Limited, acting on behalf of Lobbydom One Limited, who are the applicant. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this application, which is recommended for approval. The proposals will see the delivery of a high quality and well-designed area of open space in lieu of on-site outdoor sports pitches and associated ancillary development. The development will provide for relevant Section 106 contributions to deal with off-site provision of relevant outdoor sports provision. As set out in the report, following implementation of the wider development, it became apparent that the outdoor sports pitches and associated development would be impractical to deliver successfully, and that an alternative use of part of the site as an open space area would best suit the development and the needs of residents and the wider public alike. The outdoor sports pitch area part of the site was originally envisaged and does not sit comfortably alongside other uses dominating the central part of the site. The topography of the land where the sports pitches were intended to be provided does not allow for the proposed use without substantial engineering works. Finally, the nature of the sports pitches would see a constant flow of visitors in and out of the wider site, both at weekdays and at the weekends, causing a challenging parking environment and giving rise to amenity issues for residents. Based on these factors, discussions were undertaken with the District Council, Sports England and other relevant representatives. Then followed the update to the playing pitch strategy, which recognised the benefit of off-site provision and the benefit of gathering funding to provide for new facilities for outdoor sport. The proposals offer the ability for informal sport kickabout use to be maintained within the layout, whilst also ensuring a good mix of grass types and planting to achieve a biodiversity net gain, and overall provides a better and more usable area for a range of users. The applicant is in agreement with the section of gravel path to be introduced instead of grass mown path at Heather Close, and recognises, following comments from residents and officers, that the gravel path
30 seconds
will widen access opportunities. The proposals will see an attractive open space area provided in an acceptable form and will result in a satisfactory form of development and ensure delivery of a well-designed and comprehensive development. Lobbydom One Limited are fully committed to these proposals and respectfully request your support for the approval of this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions, Councillor Scott?
Speaker is the 6.5 on the reports.
Can you put your microphone on?
In 6.5, there are 6 A, B, C and D indicating the reasons why the actual pitches weren't going to be problematic, I think is the word you used. Why was the need for 5 metre high retaining walls? Why was there a need for 5 metre retaining walls?
Sorry, Mr. Henderson, would you mind putting your microphone on?
If you consider the local centres here and the ponds are down here, you've effectively got that triangle in between. Now, in order to get flat pitches, you have to build up the way on a number of bits. So both when you drop at the back of the local centre, then when you move across, then they actually support the pitch before it gets to the ponds, that would need to be built up as well.
So I think you mentioned engineering would be, you said engineering would be quite excessive.
Yes.
Is that down to cost? When you first planned it, did you not envisage that?
It was originally, when originally considered, believe it or not, the proposals as now cost more than what it is to actually potentially put the pitches in. Obviously, I think like many of these things, when something was seen in 2D, everybody thought, oh yes, that works fine. But when they finally realised that the slope, etc., in the 3D world, it was seen to be something that would be more involving than probably first envisaged.
Okay. And have you experienced this on other developments, similar problems?
We've not really had any other developments on a sort of slope of that nature. Obviously Kettering Road in your district, which is on, but it's got no facilities going down the slope. Thank you very much.
Councillor Graves.
Thank you. Could I just quickly ask you about the community hall element of the original application? Are you proposing to change that? And because I note that there's some comments about changing rooms, and I think if you do away with pitches, you have to do away with changing rooms. There's no point having those on a general open space kickabout area. But community halls are generally quite sought after, and if the community doesn't want them, normally the scouts
Councillor Graves,
they'll
there's
take them
no
up.
community centre room. We're just discussing a change of pitches to
Well,
Country Park.
The original application had a community hall, so I just want to establish
It's
from
not this application, is it?
So is that staying?
And explain that. It's a popular misconception with this site about the community hall. There's a separate provisions for the community facilities on this site. As you rightly said, it was the changing facilities that was the other bit that went for the pitches. There's no community bit at this part of the site.
Can I just please come in? The community facilities are supposed to be adjacent to the primary school. So there's land adjacent to the primary school, and that is where the community facility was envisaged to go. At the minute, there's no reserved matters for the community facilities at this minute in time. An application may be forthcoming in the future, but at this minute in time, there is no community facility available. But if it does come forward, it will be adjacent to the primary school, and it's also connected to the number of obligations within the Section 106. We haven't got the amount of obligations that have come in yet in order for the community facilities hall to be erected at this minute in time.
So, Chair, just to be clear, I'm still glad I raised this point, because we as councillors, if a previous committee has voted through something, and I just want to try and find it so I can read it out, has voted through a community facility, I don't like hearing the word was, or there's no money for it, or I mean, so I'm not understanding what the status of this community facility that was voted through.
Facility is not connected to this application, though. The original SDA development was separated into three different developers, and Davison's is the middle section, and there was no requirement on their section to provide any community facility. It's on the northern part of the SDA development, which is completely separate to the application before us now.
Thank you, Mr. Henson. And forgive me if you've already covered the point, but I'm interested in the landscape management plan, and I see it's conditioned 4. Can you just clarify for me who will be responsible for the maintenance of the open space, assuming that this committee approves the application? Can you also confirm that there will be no cost, no charge to any of the residents nearby with regard to keeping the open space maintained in a proper fashion, and whether or not there's going to be any sort of landscape management company that's going to be responsible for this? And if so, what would be the elements of ensuring that the open space is going to be properly looked after in future for the nearby residents? Thank you.
Yeah, the land itself will form part of the wider management company for the whole site. So obviously at the moment, there is a charge that the residents will pay for the benefit of the open space on the site. That at the moment covers this area for what we call the next phase. So charging has been done for the first part of the site, and then there'll be a further implementation once it moves on to, once there's more houses essentially in position. The management plan itself, the landscape management, that'll link in with the biodiversity monitoring work as well. So those two are sort of intertwined. So they'll make sure that the landscaping plan takes account of the various different types of grasses that we need to hit the BNG standards. So those two things link together, and then on a periodic basis, once it's all established, there's monitoring takes place. I think it's year one to 5 and then 5 yearly from memory. So there'll be an ongoing thing to make sure that that area is continually maintained as it's intended.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Sarfas?
On the 106 agreement, what is the date of the start and the date of the finish on the legal document on the 106?
I'm not quite sure if I'm in terms of, so if there was a new 106 coming forward. So yeah, so tonight is subject to the signing of the 106. So if it was approved, it would then start.
Thank you. Councillor James?
Thank you, Chair. I've got two questions. One is because we've got photographs in here. I don't want to be too cruel, Richard, but I noticed it's quarry waste, it's breed gravel type material near housing. You know, and we've had experience of that here. It's okay, but when it gets wet, it gets on your boots. And if it gets on your carpet in your new house, sets like concrete. And I say that because we've had two failures actually. One of them in my ward in Coleridge Way, where the breed and gravel has had to be removed and another material put in, and another one in Great Bowden, where I think they're going for a tarmac solution. So I just want to make that comment. I don't like to see it near housing. And then the other one is with regard to the landscaping, which I think Councillor Bannister has mentioned also. And that is that, again, it's quite a large area. And I see the plan there, and there's a few trees dotted about. It doesn't tell us what the trees are, and this is a large development. And if we want to see some good landscaping, go and have a look at Lutterworth Country Park, which is now 20 years on from when it was put in. And you have to think about that. Think about the plants and the trees and the colours that will be there, you know, 10 or 15 or 20 years on. So I'm a little bit concerned that we've got a few, I don't know, about 15 trees dotted down here. There doesn't seem to be a proper landscape plan, which I think a development of that size is worthy of. Sorry, Richard, two comments.
On this site here, unfortunately, it's something that never does landscaping plans justice when they come out like that. When you see them in their full size form, they've got all the number of species in the various areas, the number of trees, you know, the amount that's going to go in terms of, you know, bushes, etc. Quite often in these areas where you think you just see a green blob, it'll actually say, you know, 90 number, you know, species, etc. that go in.
That's a bit reassuring then.
What we try to do, as ever, I mean, I know the country park was initially envisaged. I think that was a grand idea that we had, that it sounded great at country park, and it actually was the opposite. Everyone was like, oh, a country park? Oh, we're not so sure about this. And once we'd clarified it really was, you know, an extended area of open space, everyone was far more comfortable with things.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? No? Thank you very much. I'll open it up for the planning committee now to comment on this application. Who's going to start us off? Anyone? No? You all happy with it? Councillor Graves?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I'll just go straight to recommend taking the officer's recommendation for approval on this. I've carefully read.
Recommending approval?
Yeah, I've carefully read the sports body's comments. I've listened to the some of the comments from the speaker, and yeah, satisfied with it. I would encourage the land management to have involvement from local people. Yes, a significant kick around area, but you might get a little community orchard request or something like that. But I'm struggling to see any reason not to go with this. We can't rely on anything from anybody to keep the pitches by the sound of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have I got a seconder? Councillor Elliott?
Happy to second.
Right, we have a proposer and a seconder to approve this application. So we'll go to the vote now, please.
So I'll ask each councillor whether you are for or against the approval of the application or whether you abstain. Councillor Bannister?
For.
Councillor Burrows?
For.
Councillor Elliott?
For.
Councillor Gare?
For.
Councillor Graves?
For.
Councillor James?
For.
Councillor Moder? For. Councillor Sarfas?
For.
Councillor Scott?
For.
Councillor Worrell?
For.
The outcome is that 10 councillors were for the application and therefore the application is approved.
Thank you. So that application is now approved. Thank you, everyone. It's getting quite close to 9:30, so I think we need to take a vote as to whether we're going to carry on after 9:30 or not. So the Council Constitution Part 4, Section 1, Council Procedure Rules says that at a meeting of the Council, unless the majority of councillors present vote for the meeting to continue, the Chairman shall, when 3 hours have elapsed after the commencement of the meeting, interrupt the meeting and call for the vote immediately on the item under discussion. So we have to decide whether we're going to carry on after 9:30. So can I have a comment?
Were you suggesting you recommend you can do?
No. What do you want to recommend? We carry on or stop? Do you want to carry on? Have a seconder to carry on?
No. I just want to suggest that if a vote is taken to carry on, we put a limit on how far deep into the night we go. My proposal is that we only extend by 1 hour to 10:30. I don't know if that has any support, but I think that going beyond 10:30, we have to be aware that officers as well as members of the public all have homes to go to, and it is getting dark. It is December. It's not so great. We do have a reserve date in the calendar to carry on.
But perhaps I could suggest that we just do the next application, which is the Lutterworth one, and then finish after that. Would you want to do that?
Was that an amendment to my original?
Yes, I'm proposing an amendment to Councillor Scott's proposal that we do carry on, but only so far as 10:30, and we finish it at 10:30. If we haven't finished it, we go straight to a vote at whatever application we're dealing with at that time. That's my proposal.
Okay, so we've got a proposer and a seconder to continue the planning committee until 10:30, and if we're still discussing an application at 10:30, we will go straight to the vote on that application. And if there are any other applications following that, we will resume next Wednesday, the 10th, with whatever's left. So can I have a vote on that? We just do a show of hands. Does everyone approve of that? Okay, we'll carry on with the next application, which is at Lutterworth. And we'll carry on until 10:30, and then we'll guillotine it, as it were, if we haven't finished it. So the next application is 25/00746/OUT, land at Junction 20, Swinford Road, Lutterworth. It's an outline application for 90 dwellings. So it's going to be presented by Adrian. Carry on, Adrian.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So as you say, an outline application for 90 dwellings. Members will see from the site papers, but some members, there's a history here, and some members will be familiar with that history and the site, and we've got local members as well, and even if they weren't on the planning committee at that site, they will certainly know this site. So here we go. It's a fairly irregular shaped site right by the M1 motorway, which you can clearly see on the overhead in front of you there. So I think a lot of people will be familiar with the site. You've got a mix of some residential development off to the west, and then some commercial properties also off to the west. To the north, actually, you've got commercial development that's taken place. To the west, you've got the motorway, and then to the south, you have countryside. So it is a countryside site at the minute. So it's outside Lutterworth, but immediately adjacent to Lutterworth. But it is open countryside, if you like, in agricultural use, and that's self-evident here from the photographs that you've got. So I think this view is actually from the road bridge, the Swinford Road Bridge. It will be across the motorway. So I think here we're looking at the site on the left-hand side, actually. So it will be behind that embankment, effectively on the left-hand side of that photograph. You can see the Lutterworth Junction there with the slip roads, etc. The application is outlined other than the access, and you'll see some plans we've got. So there's a detailed approval for the access, but it says here illustrative master plan. You're familiar with the outline concept, other schemes, some illustration of how this development could come out forward if it does. But ultimately, if approved tonight, it's outlined. So it's only the detailed access that's approved, the layout, etc., will come forward in a separate application. The way that this illustrative plan is promoted does provide, you'll see on there, for open space, provides for actually biodiversity net gain. You've got the applicant who can explain this speaking tonight, and landscaping around the site. And actually on this plan here, on the right hand side, you can just make out a line, and I think this will be an attenuation feature, noise attenuation for the M1 motorway. And again, the applicants will be speaking. They can clarify that if you've got any questions about that. So this, like I say, is the detail of the access. When we get, I think it's some of the photographs here, when you get to the site, I mean, personally, it's a very nice cycle way into Lutterworth, this is, but this particular access, you can see how they're taking advantage of the outside of the bend to achieve access in the most suitable point and appropriate visibility, etc. This plan shows it in the context of development round and about, or allocations. And members will have seen and will know there was a previous refusal on this site, but you'll see within the report, and there'll be potentially for discussion, the context and circumstances have changed significantly since that refusal. What this plan does shows the Lutterworth East development that's got a consent, so that's coming forward to the east. To the north here, what's come forward in recent years is a logistics development. Actually, this plan's not quite up to date, because where I'm circulating now, members will know there's an Aldi supermarket. And also, it's probably not clear on the plan, but since the previous decision, there was significant highway improvements in terms of crossing the highway there, the main route there. So since that decision was taken, there's been a great deal of change, which partly is shown in this plan, but members will know from the site or the environments, it's changed quite a lot since that decision. From an officer point of view, whilst it's countryside, the local plan policy, GD2, which has got criteria for development, so it's not completely out of date. It is relevant to this in terms of it's not solely about housing numbers, it's about housing could come forward in the context of not having a 5-year supply, which we were told we'd hear about, and we have heard about, and we might hear it again tonight. But in the context of that very important consideration we've all already heard about tonight, notwithstanding that, in any event, this, the analysis of this proposal, it does actually satisfy GD2 of the local plan by being in close proximity to Lutterworth in this context. There's quite a lot within the reports of the visual assessments. These overheads show how that's been accounted for. There's been a technical appraisal by the applicants. Again, you can ask them how they like about that, but these overheads, if you like, you'll see the approximate location of the site, and it is relatively well contained, to be fair, and I think some people will know the site quite well in any event. And again, you can see it here clearly from an iconic landmark in Lutterworth, and this will actually be from just outside the Oldie, I suspect, won't it? So in terms of technical aspects, highways, drainage, ecology, noise, air quality, understandable, you know, issues of major interest locally. But, you know, it's been through this in the report, and there are no technical objections. The statutory consultees are satisfied that this scheme can come forward. So that's been looked at thoroughly, as you would expect, because of the, you know, the significance in the local context. There are objections been raised from the town council and parish councils about highways, congestion and air quality, but as I said, that within the report, the statutory consultees, the expert advice to the council is that those matters can be addressed or are addressed. So subject to the, you know, a raft of conditions that's set out here, and the Section 106 agreement, that this proposal does satisfy GD2 of the local plan. And it is in the emerging local plan, but you'll see very fairly in the report, very best, that has limited weight. But notwithstanding that, the policy of the local plan as it is satisfied, and hence it is recommended for approval, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. I've got two speakers on this application. The first is Mr. Paul Mann. Would like to come forward and sit at the desk. You've got 3 minutes and you'll get a 30-second warning. Start when you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to speak tonight, members. I am a resident in the area. I live on Swinford Road, and I can attest to how busy the actual road is. It has a lot of traffic, and people tend to use it as a convoy to Stamford Hall quite regularly. So my main concern with this proposal is that it introduces a give-way system onto the top of Swinford Road. So if I'm travelling from Swinford to Lutterworth, I'm now faced with 3 give-way signs. The first at the housing estate itself, the second at the top of Swinford Road, and the third at the interface with the A426. Now, local people know that use these roads that the A426 gets very crowded at certain peak times. It only needs a small perturbation in the wider network to cause tailbacks from the Whittle roundabout that go well beyond the golf course interface, and sometimes as far back as Coatesback Village. So that is my main concern, and those concerns are reiterated by the Swinford Town Council, who've expressed their reservations on the planning portal. I'm not here to speak for them today, but I highlight that to members. Also, the Lutterworth Town Council members have also expressed reservations about the crossing points on the A4304 between the M1 junction 20 and the Whittle roundabout itself. Moving away from the purely congestion issues, I have reservations about the air quality study that was submitted with the proposal. I note that the consultants have said that the DEFRA model 2021 is appropriate for the modelling studies, and that they've used ADMS roads, which is a recognised tool. However, even in their own table, 5.10 of their air quality study, the receptors, the PM 2.5 particulate concentrations at various receptors, principally R3 to R7,
are almost reaching, and so I think one or two have actually exceeded the legally enforceable air quality target in 2040, which is governed by the statutory instrument 2023. 2023 statutory instrument 96 regulation 4, which means that surely if we're planning houses now, we should be planning to design them so that people are not exposed to greater than the legally enforceable air quality targets. But the measurements actually in the report indicate that we're already exceeding them. So I'd have reservations about the reliability of that study for
Mr. Mann,
planners to
sorry,
make a
your
decision.
time is up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mann. Are there any questions for Mr. Mann? Councillor Sarfas.
You, being someone that lives in Lostworth, obviously, two questions. One is that when a town council goes to highways and says there's a traffic problem, the normal response is we'll look into it. They look into it and do nothing. That's my first question. What would you do to dealing with that? The second question is that the £18 million round the Whittle jet, which is part of the Lutterworth East development as well, do you think that will have any effect? And my other concern is the noise levels. Even though you may have a sound barrier, the amount of traffic that's going down around the Whittle jet and round, I don't know how, you know, that's a very busy part with traffic. Don't you have the concern about the noise as well? The site itself seems to me to be quite isolated from Lutterworth in the sense that you need a vehicle to actually get there. You can walk, there are pedestrian walkways, but you've got to cross a very busy road. It's going to be very noisy. You know, I worry about all the people that may be interfacing with that. I myself have used that crossing quite regularly. It is quite tricky. The traffic is very fast. The noise levels are quite high. I'll be honest, I wouldn't want to live in a house on that site because first of all, you'll be exposed to the pollution from the M1. And it's not just pollution from combustion, it's pollution from wear of tyres, and the PM particles come from the wear and tear of tyres braking systems on cars. So there are lots of different sources from it. It will be noisy. I haven't reviewed the noise studies, but I believe the criteria is about 80 decibels is the legally compliant level. So obviously officers would need to look into that that point. I'm not really able to address that.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions for the speaker? No, thank you very much. Our next speaker is Sandra Ford. Would like to come forward? Thank you. You've got 3 minutes and you'll have a 30-second warning. Start whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. I'm speaking on behalf of Helen Land, who fully endorsed the officer's recommendation to approve the application as set out in the committee report. In consideration of the application before you, I respectfully request members take into account the following points. Lutterworth Town is a key centre within Harborough and identified as such within the adopted local plan and benefits from a range of services and facilities to meet the needs of residents and businesses. The application is in outline and we are seeking permission to build up to 90 homes. It is acknowledged that a similar application was refused several years ago. However, since that time, development has taken place within the vicinity of the site, including the new Aldi store with new infrastructure, including the provision of a new Toucan crossing on the A4303, which provides good connectivity from the site to the main centre. In addition, the Council has adopted its local plan in 2019 and has subsequently commenced a review of that plan, with the submission plan consulted upon earlier this year. We have also had updated NPPFs and revised housing figures. The context to which this application is now being considered is therefore significantly different to the previous scheme. The adopted local plan allows for development to be approved adjoining key centres such as Lutterworth, so long as the scale of the development is not disproportionate and where the council does not have a 5-year housing land supply, subject to compliance with all the policies within the plan which we have adhered to. Furthermore, there are no objections from the technical statutory consultees. Within the submission version of the draft local plan, the site is proposed as a draft allocation for up to 90 dwellings. It is acknowledged that the draft plan carries limited weight. However, it does set the direction of travel for the location of new developments, and given the council does not currently have a 5-year housing land supply, we have worked collaboratively with officers at the council to develop a scheme which reflects local priorities and ambitions and which will assist the council with its housing numbers in a location of its choice. The scheme creates an attractive and sustainable development and also provides a number of benefits, including 90 homes, of which 36 will be affordable, new play and green spaces, which including a circular walk around the perimeter of the site for both new and existing residents, a substantial amount of new planting in and around the site, as well as significant site habitat enhancements, a new footway linking the development with Rugby Road, and drainage improvements. As a result, we respectfully request you grant permission in accordance with the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for our speaker? Councillor Sarfas?
Would you say that where the traffic lays out and where the houses are, that would be a quiet place to live for people? And would you, if you could afford it, buy a house there? And why?
I think the first thing to say that we have to say that, across nationally, we are suffering from a national housing crisis, and the council does need to find sites that are suitable for residential development. This scheme and the site itself has been identified by the council as a suitable site within its proposed plan, a local plan going forward. So on that basis, yes, I do consider that the site with the traffic and the site layout can accommodate the housing in an environment which is suitable for people. And yes, if I need to buy a house, there are people within this locality and nationally who cannot currently afford to buy a property because there are insufficient properties. So yes, I think this is a suitable location for development.
I'm not against people buying houses, it's just the location. A noisy, crazy place, really.
Councillor Gare?
Hi, have you used the pedestrian crossing over the A4304?
Yes, I have.
Right, and you found that an acceptable and comfortable way to travel?
I did, yes.
Thank you.
Any more questions? No? Thank you very much. The end of the speakers. I'll open it up to the public. So Adrian's got some comments.
Yeah, just a couple of clarifications or further inputs. As I absolutely understand some of the questioning here, but certainly in terms of air quality and noise, you'll see within the report that we've been to the Council's Environmental Health Officer and they've been submissions on behalf of the applicant, and the experts are happy with that. In terms of, I get the point you're making about the location by the M1 potentially some people. I'll say that has been assessed and it can be mitigated. In terms of consistent decision making, which is relevant to us, the previous refusal, which is referenced on page 254, the reason at that time, it's the countryside location and relatively inconvenient access and loss of agricultural land that was referenced. And in terms of consistent decision making, the loss of agricultural land, the planning policy has changed. I would suggest back then it was more elevated, the national planning policy framework. It's not so elevated now. And in terms of the inconvenient access, it has changed. I appreciate the point, and I said myself, I'm fortunate enough to cycle in this way and I use that crossing, and I know it wouldn't be for everybody, but it has changed and it has improved the situation. So in terms of consistent decision making as a planning authority, the previous issues are addressed by this scheme. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone comment? Councillor Graves?
This is certainly a really interesting one. I know this patch pretty well. I live up in Bourton Astley. I've walked past here, I've cycled past here, I've driven past here lots of times. I would imagine the site is not big enough for a decent office or industrial development. It doesn't look particularly big, although it's up to the owner and developer to look at that. I've satisfied myself with the way that the Toucan crossing, I think it's called, it's a proper traffic light. It's a red, amber, green traffic light, and I don't know about most people, but it's very rare that I would just decide to bomb through a red traffic light, although occasionally people accidentally do. At my stage of life, I wouldn't choose to live there. I hear what Councillor Sarfus was sort of trying to strongly put. However, at a different stage of life, I owned a flat in the middle of Reading for a year and a half on one of the busiest junctions there, and there was a nightclub next door. So we didn't just get noise in the daytime, we got odd noise at night time as well. I could hear that traffic noise quite a bit. I slept with the back window shut. Some people choose to live in these places, and that's completely okay. I wouldn't now, but do you know what I did when I was younger in a place like this. I know that it's a shorter walk to Aldi, the Elms restaurant, some of the offices over the other side of the road, and to the town centre than many other places in Lutterworth, on the fringes of Lutterworth, that are much further away from the town centre. At the moment, I'm somewhat sympathetic with this site. I really want to listen to what other people say, particularly one or two who are more local than me. But we are really short with our housing supply. This is close to the centre of Lutterworth. It's on an attractive road. Once you get onto that road, you've got countryside ahead of you, no one can stop you. So I'm really interested in what other people have to say, but I am satisfied that the walking to the Aldi shops and across the road, I personally wouldn't have any problem in using it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Graves. Thank you, Councillor Scott. You next. Put your microphone.
Okay, thank you. In terms of the location, I see it's actually adjacent to a slip road. Has any thought been taken? I would have concerns that slip roads tend to have tailbacks, and that you would get idling traffic on that sort of slip road. So has any thought been applied to that?
The highway comments, when you the specific point about idling traffic, I can't say that has been assessed. I'm not saying it hasn't been. There's been an air quality assessment, if you like. But what I can say, and you'll say within the report, special attention has been paid to the proximity to the motorway. National Highways have looked at this, and as a consequence, they've come up between us with a particular condition to ensure there's no impact onto the motorway. So specifically, and I say the idling traffic, if you like, unfortunately, it's probably something you can't particularly legislate for on occasions. But the proximity to the motorway has been accounted for, and in all fairness as well, the speaker from the local resident talked about the A4 to A. Yes, I think we're all aware that can again get very busy, but yeah, the proximity to the motorway has been accounted for, and the air quality and the noise has been satisfied.
Thank you. Councillor Sarfus.
Concern is about our infrastructure. Our GP surgeries are nearly full. Obviously this was rejected in 2019, but it's back in the plan. And it sounds probably like I'm against building houses. Well, I'm not. We've already got a development of 250 off Leicester Road. Then we've got Lutterworth East, which is 8,000, whatever it is, 7,500, I think. So my comment regarding we need to make sure that the money here that's given for our GP facilities is used, because there's a concern of the infrastructure. And the other thing is that the County Council Highways plan for the development on the Whittle roundabout needs to be developed as well to relieve the traffic from this development itself.
Thank you. Councillor Gare?
Yes, obviously I am on Lutterworth Town Council, and Lutterworth Council find this an unacceptable development. As to the motorway, further north we have similar developments on Farringdon Road, for example, which has the old railway fully charged now with mature trees between it and the motorway, and you can't hear the motorway. But in the spring, they have to go out in their gardens and clear the thin gel of pollutants off their garden furniture before they can use them. So things are not as simple as they seem. There is the problem of the traffic. It's already quite difficult to access the A426 there. You frequently find yourselves waiting. If the prominence is given to the housing estate, and I'm not quite sure what's happening when the Swinford Road meets that little road coming up there, there's going to be problems. One real concern is that the residents of Swinford, or the people coming into Swinford from the A14 and further south, knowing that this becomes a difficult junction, will turn off and go down into Walton. Cynics would say that the recent complete refurbishment of that road may have something to do with that, but I wouldn't subscribe to that. The thing is, having looked at this and having twice suggested that things need to change, I mean, Leicester Highways figures to deal with the number of houses and the traffic that it generates relate to the aeroplane roundabout, which is a 12 entry roundabout. The first roundabout that is reached by continental lorry drivers in this country. I had a conversation with a German lorry driver who drove the wrong way around it. I've also, on this, described here as an attractive alternative to the car, the lights going across there. I have had conversations with drivers about that, sitting on there, because they come off the aeroplane roundabout at speed onto a dual carriageway. Ahead of them is a national speed limit sign, and the last thing they see are the pedestrian lights. I'm going across there the other day with a lady with a pushchair. She said she'd have they see you at the last minute. They're extremely apologetic. They know I've got it wrong. They've got it wrong. And this, you know, this will increase it. Certainly people I cannot see on a regular basis going down there. And the same happened with Gloucester Road. We said people with pushchairs and toddlers will not use this, and they don't. So for a variety of reasons, we do not think this is a suitable place to put a housing estate. And what we have said is we are not NIMBYs. Don't put it here, put it on the A426 north to Leicester, where the other evening we were presented with an application for an estate of 250 houses, I think it was, somewhere in that region. You could tack that onto the top. Now, there are problems up there with access to the road, but they're there because Leicestershire County Highways, would you believe, ignored our advice about the difficulties there would be at the top of Bill Crane Way. There's a hit and run there on Friday night. Nobody was injured, fortunately. The guy drove off, leaving a damaged car. If this was moved from here to there, and I think it is part of the Sheila, you could have the same number of houses and you would integrate it with the structural changes which we needed to the road up there, including the development that's going to have to be made for Lutterworth East there for the start of the Spine Road. So I would recommend that this application is refused You know, on the grounds that it is not a comfortable place to live, and the town has offered and suggested an alternative site which would serve exactly the same purpose as this. People are not going to be walking into Lutterworth frequently from this site. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, councillor Gare. Adrian wants to say something.
Yes, thank you, councillor, and I do appreciate particularly local expertise by yourself and councillor Salfhouse, local knowledge. But I am bound to say there are no technical objections. The point that there's a preference by others elsewhere isn't for us tonight. So, for example, with respect to go down that road, I'd have to advise the committee would seriously put the council at risk of unreasonable behaviour and costs in defending an appeal. And the issues, as I say, if it were at appeal, some of the issues or concerns you raised, genuinely, I get that. But the planning authority, in terms of consistent decision making, has been there, and circumstances have moved on. So again, it would be extremely challenging for the planning authority to demonstrate a case against those technical issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Graves?
Yeah, just a really quick possible correction, just to something Councillor Gare said. I just want to ask Councillor Gare to consider, when I last turned off the M1 and turned left towards the airplane roundabout, there's a 40 limit sign to my recollection. I didn't want members of the committee to think that the Toucan traffic light where pedestrians from that potential development crossover is national speed limit. It's now a 40. Oh, I thought you said that.
The national speed limit, you're accelerating towards it.
Councillor Gare, sorry, can you put your microphone on?
Anyway, I've made my point. It is a 40 limit where that pedestrian crossing is.
Councillor David Atkinson would like to say something
Well,
there.
just to say, Chairman, I echo what Adrian's saying. Completely understand Councillor Gare, Councillor Salfhouse. The work you do on behalf of Lutterworth is prestigious and prodigious, and local knowledge, the passion, the town council, the site. But the council is in place of no technical objections to the proposal before it. So the planning committee needs to think about that quite carefully. It has no technical objections before it. You may or not personally choose to like the site to live and so on and so forth, but we need to make those decisions, as Adrian and others say quite frequently, based on the application before us tonight. The council already considered a local plan site for the new local plan and put this site into that local plan. So it's already sort of suggested that it might be a suitable site for allocation, obviously for others to consider the examination. And I completely understand your points of view, but we can't really look at alternative sites on the other side of town. It needs to be considered on its merits tonight on the application we have before it, with no technical objections. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Bannister would like a word.
Thank you, Chair. And I declare I'm a resident of Lutterworth. So I know the site very well. And I just want to make comments on the developments that have happened since 2018, when this site was up for decision and refused, and there's been comment about since then. We've had Aldi and other buildings constructed in or near the Whittle roundabout, because that is my concern about this application, because it's not just the Aldi, it's not just the logistic warehouse that's on the A4303 leading up to the junction 20. It's not just we've now given permission for Lutterworth East, and then opposite Lutterworth East, we've now given condition change so that strategic warehousing can be constructed there. We know that there's an application for a sand and gravel pit that's gone into the county council. We know that on the other side of the Whittle roundabout, Magna Park has expanded exponentially since 2018. There's also a consent given to a McDonald's restaurant and so on. The volume of traffic at peak times on the Whittle roundabout is such that it comes to a standstill. And I know that because I have been sitting in cars waiting to go around or waiting to go through this roundabout, and traffic backs up into town, south of the town, and in both directions, east and west. This application will add to that extensive pinch point in the town. And for somebody coming out of Swinford Road wanting to turn right because they want to take their kids to the high school or to the college or to the primary schools, they're going to have a heck of a wait. And people leave that Whittle roundabout going towards Gibbet Hill at some speed. And there is an awful lot of HTVs as well travelling along the Rugby Road. This does nothing really, in my mind, to help mitigate that particular pinch point. And I appreciate the comments that are made by the officers with regard to, well, there's no technical objections. But I have to disagree because, if anything, there should be some additional mitigation when Swinford Road meets the A426, even if it's traffic signals, something to control the traffic to make the easing of people coming in and out of Swinford Road onto Rugby Road. I'm unhappy about the fact that this is a site in the emerging local plan. I don't think it will work, and it just adds tremendous pressure to the Whittle roundabout and the highway issues, concerns that are already in existence and will be growing because of the consents that this committee, this council have already approved. So those are my comments.
Councillor James. Councillor James.
Thank you, Chair. It's a point of detail really, but just looking at the plan, which we've got up there as well, we're showing 5 blocks of development, right? Is there any significance in the fact that if we look at the top one on the plan, it's 1 block, isn't there? There's, I mean, are we looking here? I know it's outlined, but are we looking at a row of terrace houses, or are we looking at apartment blocks? Is there any detail at this stage with regard to that?
It's just that.
Doesn't mean anything then.
No, it's just indicative. That's how they could do.
Oh,
it.
okay.
But there's no particular details.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Chair.
Right, Councillor Sarfas.
I want to go back to David. I understand what you
turn your microphone off, Councillor James.
Yes.
I understand what you're saying regarding planning and advice, but it should be that with highways, it's not your fault. And it's not Mark's or anyone else's fault on the council. But they never listen to the town council. They never listen to the councillors. They never listen to the county council. And to me, there is a traffic problem here. And I would have thought, without being rude, it would be a bit like if I want to now, near where the Whittle Jet is, to get planning permission to build a house on that roundabout. Would be ludicrous, but that's how I feel that it looks like where that site is because of the congestion. We talk about it, but I would have thought it would be to us as councillors a planning issue. Yeah, even though highways have said there isn't, to us there is a planning traffic issue. So if we have a concern about that there is a traffic issue, then it should go back to highways. Sorry, David, I didn't mean that in a rude way.
I try first, then David might. I get the generality, and I particularly get, Councillor Bannister's talking a lot about, and yourselves about the Whittle roundabouts. I would, and the general point about backwards and forwards, the highway is strategic. I think David might come back on, but I will go back to what Mark said on an earlier application. I absolutely see it's genuinely expressed concerns about the Witter roundabout, but a lot of that to me is an existing situation, good or bad. I would be very cautious to attribute that to this scheme, or any change there. I don't have the figures in front of me. You know, we could try and get them if we wanted to, but I would imagine the assessment for this will demonstrate proportionately what would come from this to the Witter roundabout really would not make a significant change. I know that's kind of a hard thing to take in terms of evidence base, but that's something we could ask for if you really wanted some more peace of mind, to get some more details on exactly the numbers from here relative to what's going through the Witter roundabout, because I imagine it simply wouldn't demonstrate significance in highway terms. But the wider point, I think, David, in terms of highway strategy.
Did you want to comment, David?
Well, thank you, Chair. No, I've already said, completely understand Councillor Sarfas and Councillor Dare's local view, the lived experience, the local view that you bring. Adrian made a reasonable, quite an interesting suggestion there for the committee. The hard thing is for officers sitting here advising the committee is that planning relies on that, on the evidence and the expertise of those particular bodies that we rely on, the Highway Authority, the local flood authority on other applications we've considered this evening. We've had these conversations before with these applications at previous committees, and we always have them in these periods when we have no 5-year land supply. The speakers tonight have reminded us probably half a dozen times tonight that we have no 5-year land supply. This is something we need to rectify through the local plan. We are progressing the local plan as quickly as we can. That will make life a lot easier for the planning committee, as it did last time. But as Adrian has said, it sounds dismissive to say there are no technical objections. That's all. It sounds disrespectful to members to say that live in these communities. But the statute of the planning committee is to make those decisions based on the evidence, and the evidence that for this application is pointing towards the fact that planning permission should be granted, and I have to advise the committee to the best of my professional ability, as do my officers. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Graves wanted to say something.
Yeah, it was just a really quick bit of information. I got Google Maps out and measured the distance between the very first new property as you come into Lutterworth from the north down the 426 and Lutterworth Town Hall, and it's 1.1 miles. So I appreciate that there's some attractive green fields and development opportunities up there, but you know, as a resident of Broughton Astley, I would be really concerned if we were trying to put houses the furthest possible direction away from our village centre, and I think the same goes for the town centre. And I'm just really concerned on this one. I'm listening to the senior officers, and I think we're moving in a direction where we will get to a point where we will lose an appeal on this site. And my gut feeling is we've got to that point, but I appreciate the committee may disagree with that. But I am becoming concerned that we're really starting to struggle to, as a committee, refuse this sort of application when it's now ticking a lot of boxes.
Councillor Gare, I think we've got a proposal on the table anyway to refuse. So do you find support for that? Is there a seconder to refuse? Councillor Gare's already proposed refusal some time ago. You want to second it? Okay. Have we got some more comments? Yes, Councillor James, put your microphone on, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I'm just trying to think of other developments which are near a very, very busy road, and this is surrounded by busy roads. And we've got this little connection going down to the Toucan crossing with all the traffic around there, HGVs and obstructions and visibility not very good. I mean, I can see other developments like this in other areas, and to encourage people to you could put a bridge over there. I know of many examples where you'd have a development like that, and then you'd have a footbridge going over that main road. So you're there, heading towards the Elms. And if you want to go to Aldi, then you can cross the road where it's a bit safer.
But it's got a crossing already.
Pardon?
It's got a crossing already.
Yeah, but it's not a bridge, is it?
We've heard that it's a
dangerous
crossing,
crossing, in
haven't we?
my view.
But
It's
it's still a
dangerous.
crossing.
Try and take your mobility scooter. Okay.
We need some reasons for refusal.
I'll switch them.
If I may, for councillor Gare, because what I made a note of was, because there's been a proposal and a seconder, so I'll go back to my note of what councillor Gare proposed. And that was, it's not a comfortable place to live and there's alternative sites elsewhere. So that's what your proposal was. There's this.
Sorry, councillor Gow, could you put your microphone on, please, and just repeat what you've just
The
said?
links to the town are not good, and there will be serious traffic problems here with the golf course, the villages, and the increased traffic. I don't know whether people know, but Magna Park is now the largest logistics park in Europe, bar none. And when we go home tonight, all the
Yeah, so sorry to kind of interrupt there, but I've just got to, there's a proposal, I'll just add to what you said. So the proposal was, it's not a comfortable place to live, alternative sites elsewhere, and there's not good linkages to the town, and there will be traffic problems. Now, if you just indulge me a little bit, I'll pause at that point. We have got a legal advisor, and he's new to the council, in all fairness, but he's obviously been listening objectively to that. And I think with his experience, just if he wants to just advise the committee on what I've read out there.
I think that obviously comments have already been made by officers about the highways grounds as reason for refusal, given them lack of technical objections. And also, I'm not hearing the comfortable site to live. But that's not. We're not looking at residential amenity. We're not. It's difficult to see how we're tying that to a material consideration. So I can only echo the comments about if we go down this route and refuse, how will that be?
It is a highway. It is a highway.
Councillor Southwest, could you use your microphone, please?
If it wasn't a highways issue.
I think we've discussed that already, councillor Salfas. So I think we need to take the decision. Have you finished? I think it's finished. So, David Atkinson.
So I'm sitting on the side.
Yes, you are.
I think what Pete Thompson's saying, the legal advisor, is that we have to let these decisions on planning grounds. An opinion and lived experience on residential amenity and things of that nature, views on highways and this sounds a terrible thing to say around the crossing and things of that haven't been supported by our advisors, the people who are responsible for these networks and these infrastructures. It just leaves the council with no reason for refusal. I mean, I have to be blunt. There is no, I don't want to wind the committee up, but there is just no reasonable grounds, I would suggest, before us. Matter for members, complete matter for members. We've talked through these things before, but there would be great, as Councillor Graves has mentioned it, I think we're in a really weak position if we refuse this application, and that's the professional advice of myself and the professional advice of
That's crazy.
Councillor Salfas,
but that's the planning system.
But the evidence.
Councillor Salfas. I've got a Councillor Moder wants to word.
Thank you, Chair. I do feel for everybody around this table who have had their say, and I feel for David because that was a compassionate sort of explanation as to how we are with the planning. And yes, the local plan would be great, but it's not on our table. And looking at this site, it just does feel like it's a wrong place to put these houses. I agree with everybody. And it feels as if we're exposing residents, potential residents, to borderline illegal pollution levels. If we take Mr. Mann's, levels when he sort of states all these sort of pollution levels. And I do feel that we talk about clean air strategy, and it's in the MPPF somewhere where there's a quality of life. You know, when you're talking about enjoyment in your garden, opening your windows, being able to have a healthy lifestyle, a healthy place to live. And I've always said this, that planning should have a responsibility. We as, you know, we sitting here should have a responsibility to the residents and where we're going to put them, because you're right, there is a shortage in housing supplies and they will move in. But do we really want to expose residents to that? So I'm hearing everything. I agree with what you all say here. I do take on the planner's point of view as well, in that we are in a tricky situation. So I think we just need to kind of go to the vote. Thank you, Chair.
Last comment, councillor James. No more comments. I think we need
Chair.
to move to the vote.
Quick. I mean, we're talking about highways a lot, but what concerns me, and then on another hand, of course, we've thought about sustainable travel and all the options of walking and cycling. But in my view, there is no safe way of walking and cycling to the town centre. I think that's where I'm coming from at the moment.
Yeah. I have to say the highways are in favour of it. There are no technical.
Yeah, well, they probably don't cycle and walk. I don't know.
I'm sure they've been and looked at it. There's no technical consultees that are against it. I'm just pointing that out to everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
As
Appreciate it.
David Atkinson did. Councillor Gare, can you put your microphone on?
Yeah, thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Chair. I appreciate it. I fully appreciate where the officers are coming from. They have a job to do and they can only interpret that job through the technicalities and the laws that exist with regard to planning at this moment. But if that was the case, you know, that they sat there and maybe this committee would just look for, you know, mistakes in the presentation. But I mean, we've got some really good planners here and the quality of presentation here is excellent. But the people who live on the ground, you know, we are here, we are elected to look after the people in our area. And I'm just struggling how to present this. You know, it's our decision. And at times we must look and say, this is not right. It may be the law, but it's not right. We've offered an alternative here. There may be difficulties in achieving it. I know, this is what I'm saying here. And I can see where they're coming from. But, you know, we had 2 people hospitalised in the middle of town 2 years ago when a lorry changed gear outside a cafe with its air conditioning working. And it drew all the fumes into the cafe and numbers of people were ill and 2 were hospitalised. And that's the density. There are no mitigating circumstances for Magna Park built in Lutterworth with public money. I've said that before and I know I'm boring people.
You're wavering off the subject.
Yeah, I am wavering off the
About
subject.
this.
Okay, just say that Ebenezer Howard will be turning in his grave. I have proposed that we reject this, we don't approve this application on the grounds that it is not in the best interests of the local population.
Well, I'll let Adrian say
Yeah.
something.
No, it just needs to go to the vote, but I have got to do my job here.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I would have to say that proposal, if it's carried and is appealed, I would expect some very, very strong likelihood the council would get an award of costs against it. Okay, thank you.
Right, we'll go to the vote. Sarah?
Thank you. So I'm going to ask each councillor whether you are voting either for or against the proposal to refuse the application, or whether you abstain. So councillor Bannister,
I'm voting to refuse the application.
councillor Burrell,
Against.
councillor Elliott,
Against.
councillor Gare,
Refuse.
councillor Graves,
Against the proposal as laid.
councillor James,
To refuse.
councillor Moder, councillor Salfas,
Against.
councillor Scott,
Against the proposal.
councillor Wellband. Oh, sorry, councillor Worrell.
Yeah, could I just explain briefly, when I voted against the proposal that's been laid by
You
councillor
voted
Gare, I
against
just
it,
want to
you-
be very clear, and I'm expecting anyone else who said against is also voting against
Councillor
councillor
Scott?
Gare's proposal. Because I'm voting against the proposal that's been laid.
Yes, it's
So the proposal on that we're discussing now is to refuse the application.
So if you want to refuse, you vote for.
Yeah, and if you want
Want to,
approve the application, you vote against.
you said refuse.
So, Chair, I think if someone said refuse, it's very clear they want to refuse it. I was really clear that I said against, I'm against the proposal to refuse.
Sorry, that did confuse me.
How many have you got? That's good. You got what they got. So that's refused.
So the outcome of the vote is that 6 councillors vote to, vote against the proposal, and 4 councillors are voting for the proposal. Therefore, the motion to refuse the application is not carried.
Okay, so that motion falls and we need another motion. Someone to propose acceptance of this application.
I'll propose it's
So-
approved.
Councillor Graves is proposing that we approve this application. Councillor Elliott is seconding that we approve this application. So can we vote on this second one, please? So
I'm now going to ask councillors to vote either for or against the proposal to approve the application, or you may abstain. Councillor Bannister.
I'm against the proposal.
Councillor Burrell.
for,
Councillor Elliott.
For.
Councillor Gare.
Against.
Councillor Graves.
For.
Councillor James.
Against.
Councillor Moder. Councillor Sarfast.
Against.
Councillor Scott.
For.
Councillor Worrell. So the outcome of the vote is that 5 councillors voted for the proposal and 5 councillors voted against the proposal.
okay, so
In that case, the chair has the
chairman has the
vote.
casting vote and I will go with the officer recommendation as I usually do. So that application will be approved. Thank you, everyone. I think the next item has got 4 speakers to it and we've only got 15 minutes left. So do we want to stop now and do the rest of the items at next week? I think that will be a sensible option. Do we all agree that? Yeah, the